All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream, or welcome if you're new. I'm going to need a little bit of feedback from the chat here about the mic and how it sounds. I did tweak the settings recently. On my end, it says it's good. So you let me know on your end if it's coming through well or not. Mini Tom, you're saying the mic is perfect. Okay. Good. Fred, you're saying MBG, I was about to tell you to put the protein shakes down. Wes, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm glad you like the shirt. Yeah, it's one of my favorite shirts now. Mrs. MBG recently got it for me. All right, good. The mic seems to be coming through, or the sound quality seems to be coming through very good. Very well. It's good to know. Yeah, but welcome to the stream, guys. Appreciate you joining me today. We are talking about Black Myth Wukong, a game that a lot of people, I think, have been waiting for. A game that I think a lot of people have been waiting to find out, is it going to live up to the hype? What's really interesting is we have a bunch of reviews to go over for Black Myth Wukong, but unfortunately, the big standout is there are 0 PlayStation 5 reviews as of right now. And this is maybe a little bit concerning. I don't want to jump the gun, but I know that there are definitely people waiting for the PS5 reviews before pre-ordering it or buying it. And we have Jerry Gamer coming in, kicking off the day by dropping a single membership gift. Jerry, thank you so much for that, buddy. Really appreciate it. Always appreciate all the support you guys show the channel and the community. So I'm just waiting a couple minutes here to let more people file in before I do my regular intro and inform you guys of a couple things. But Jerry Gamer, thank you so much, bud. Why is that not counting? Hold on. That's weird. My member counter seems to be bugged. Let me see if I can fix it real quick. And I see we have Fred Vance coming in. Fred wants to be my ADHD today once again. He comes in and drops a 5-bomb right off the bat for you guys. Fred, thank you so much, man. Let's get some W's flowing in the chat for Jerry Gamer and Fred. Fred brings us up to 6 members already on the day. Thank you for that, bud. Let me see if I can fix this, though. Sorry for the dead air. Let me see. All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, so Fred, thank you so much, bud. Appreciate the continued support you've been showing the community. Yeah, good stuff, man. Always appreciate it. All right, so we have more people filing in. Now that we just got 6 membership gifts before we even dive into the conversation, this is a great time, I think, for me to let everybody know. Maybe some people aren't aware, or maybe they'll just serve as a reminder. Tomorrow, if everything goes according to plan, we will have the second episode of the Dual Sensibility podcast out with me and Brown Sugar. It's going to go out to members. So I just want to remind all of my members of that, but also let that serve as, a bit of incentive today, where if you are considering becoming a channel member, I think that's a good reason to become a channel member. If you're interested in, a more proper podcast, I guess you could say. But also for anybody who is gifting memberships like Fred and Jerry, or is going to gift memberships, you'll be able to give more members of the community access to this podcast. I do also want to say we did correct Brown Sugar's microphone quality. Speaking of audio quality, the first episode we did, he was just using the built-in microphone on his PC, and it wasn't like the worst thing, but it was definitely out of balance, and we were struggling with it. But he has a proper mic now, so the audio should be greatly improved. You see different levels of ratings for Metacritic and OpenCritic. Read 'em and weep. That sounds not good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. Will I be streaming Gamescom? I'm planning on it. Yeah, I'm planning on streaming Gamescom. I mean, I'm not expecting anything major, but Black Myth at native 4K with ray tracing runs under 30 FPS with a 4090. Good luck on the PS5. Yeah, that's the thing, right? The only thing we've heard is from a supposed insider who claims that Black Myth Wukong on PS5 is going to have a 1440p 60 FPS performance mode. That's the claim. There's been no official confirmation of that, and we don't even have reviews. 4 days before the game comes out, there are 0 reviews for the PS5 to let us know how this game is going to perform. So it's a little bit concerning. It's one of these things where it's like, how much blind faith should we have here? Kevin G, you're asking what's the topic tomorrow? If you're asking what the topics are for the Dual Sensibility podcast, we're going to be covering basically a bunch of topics that came out this past week. And I also want to say this as well. If you are a channel member, check the community tab. Don't check it now. This upcoming week, every week, I'm going to be putting out a members Q&A where you can submit your questions for the Dual Sensibility podcast, and we will hopefully answer them. I do want to let you know, though, if I don't get to your question, I don't want that to discourage you. Continue to come back each week and post the same question or new questions, and you might get picked. But yeah, that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. We have Mark here with a $20 super chat. Thank you for that, man. You're saying I've been burnt too many times, not allowing Black Myth PS5 review codes until launch day and PC ahead of launch is a red flag for me. Call it what you want, but it's shady and sets a bad time for the console version. Well, I have to admit, Mark, it's one of these things where I guess it does come down to the individual, right? Like, again, how much faith you're willing to have in a new studio in this specific circumstance. But I think I mostly agree with you. Like, I'm leaning more towards the side of it is making me feel a bit nervous where, I don't want to see this happen, but it could be that the game really is just not running very well on PS5. And that's why they're putting the PC codes out there. We did see something like this happen with Cyberpunk 2077. Probably the most well-documented scenario and the worst scenario where they purposely withheld console review codes because they knew the game was kind of a disaster on console, like completely broken. And when reviewers came out and they were giving the reviews, it was based on the PC version, them playing it on high-end PCs, and the experience of playing Cyberpunk 2077 at launch on a high-end PC compared to the console version was night and day. And it created a lot of problems, huge ethical dilemma there, and the backlash was insane, as it should have been. It was justified, certainly. And I just hope we don't see a similar situation here. It is a little bit concerning. It's like one of these things where, Mark, like you're saying, a lot of people have felt by this point in time like they've been burned in the past by similar situations, and they don't want to walk into that trap again. And really, if you think about it, what do you have to lose by waiting? I think the truth is you don't have anything to lose, right? If you're waiting to see how this game is going to perform on PS5, is it going to be a mess? Is it going to be well optimized? Is it going to have maybe minimal issues? There's nothing wrong with waiting. You're not going to lose anything. I mean, sure, maybe there's a little bit of FOMO of like, oh, I'm not going to be there on launch day. But in reality, I don't think it really matters that much. Because apparently, again, this is coming from a supposed insider. I have no idea if this insider has a good track record or not. But this insider on Twitter has been talking a lot about Black Myth Wukong on console. And he was saying that the game is apparently well optimized for PS5. And the only reason the PS5 reviews aren't going to be out the same day as PC is because the review codes, they got them a little bit later for PS5. That's what they said. Again, take it with a grain of salt. I have no idea if there's truth to that, but it's definitely not a good look. And I think you're right. It does set up a kind of expectation of like, well, I've seen this before and the outcome was pretty bad. So I can't blame anybody for seeing it again and playing it safe and saying, listen, to me, there's a good chance the outcome's going to be bad. I'm just going to sit back and wait. So yeah, it's a tough one though, because it's one of these games that it shares a similar, I guess you could say, cadence of the way it was. I mean, it wasn't marketed as aggressively as something like Cyberpunk, of course, but there's just this kind of hype behind it where it's like, man, this looks next gen, or like this looks incredible. I mean, I'll never forget the first time we ever saw Black Myth Wukong, the first trailer they ever released, or the first gameplay segment they ever released. It basically went viral, and people were like, this looks insane. Like, is this real? And here we are. The game's out. And so we're going to dive into that. We do have the reviews out here. I don't know that I'll be able to literally read through every single review because I think there's like 47, but we'll kind of play the field here and go over the low reviews, the mid reviews, and the high reviews, see what everybody's saying. Jerry Gamer, you're saying went to a game cafe today. To be honest, playing shooter on a nice PC is really satisfying. Gaming cafe. Yeah, I forget that those are a thing. I can't say I've ever been to one. And we have, so once again, Mark, thank you for the super chat, buddy. We have Kyle here, a member for 12 months. He says, PC is always badly optimized. The cost versus value is terrible when compared to consoles. Doubt it would release on PS5 in a bad state versus Xbox being sidelined. Well, that's what's interesting. I looked over some of the reviews briefly, or like some of the talking points, and apparently, I could be wrong about this, but just based off of what I've gleaned, it seems like maybe some of the reasoning behind why Black Myth Wukong is not coming out of the gates at like a 90 or 92 on Metacritic, and some of these reviewers are docking points, is because of the way it performs on PC. There are some issues, apparently. We're going to go over that. But I get what you're saying. Sometimes optimization is easier for console because you only have to worry about a single SKU, right? A single piece of hardware. And not to say that I expect Black Myth Wukong to perform better on PS5 than PC. I'm just not expecting that. Again, my concern goes in the other direction. But there is truth to that, right? Where when they're optimizing for PC, they have to keep in mind all these different configurations. But yeah, I would like to believe, again, I don't know how much faith I can put in these developers because I'm not, it's their first game, but I would like to believe that they would be smart enough to know, especially after the whole Cyberpunk situation. It's like, listen, if you're going to release it the same day on console, even if it is just one console like the PS5, you got to make sure it's decently, at the very least, decently optimized, like it's very playable, right? I'm not expecting perfection. Like, it's okay if it's not absolutely perfect. The closest they can get to that, the better, or the closer they can get to that. But surely they must know that. Kevin G with a super chat says, AstroBot's about to drop hot soon. Can't wait. Yeah, what's a bit disappointing? Not trying to be negative here, because I'm right there with you, Kevin G. I'm very excited for AstroBot. I'm super excited for it, actually. Kind of disappointing to see that Sony is just aggressively marketing the hell out of Concord. Every day they're dropping new stuff about Concord. Meanwhile, nothing for Astro. That's very, like, this is the type of stuff that makes me concerned about Sony, where it's like, what are you doing? I don't understand. I understand that they have to market Concord, like they can't ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist because they're releasing it. Taicho, you're saying Concord needs it more than Astro. That may be true, but at some point I feel like you got to know when to cut your losses, right? Where it's like, guys, it's not going to happen. Like you can shove this game in people's faces every day until launch. It's not going to, if any, like, I feel like it almost runs the risk of doing the opposite, of like making people more angry and annoyed, or drawing to like even more negative attention to it. Again, I understand they have to market Concord. I just don't quite understand why it's like, Sony, AstroBot's coming like literally a week and a half, or not week and a half, but like 2 weeks later, 2.5 weeks later. I'm not saying they need to show more necessarily, because like we've seen quite a bit, but it's like they should be kind of shouting from the rooftops. Astro's coming. Get ready to play Astro. Get ready to buy Astro. That's what they're doing for Concord. They are shouting Concord from the rooftops, where it's like, dude, you can't go a day without having Sony be like, here's the roadmap. Here's like 3 more trailers for 3 different characters. Here's a dev trailer. Like, why not release a dev trailer for Astro? Maybe they will. Look, to be fair, we still have a little bit of time. We have a little bit of time. Maybe they will, but it's just a little bit disheartening where it's like, Sony, surely you realize Astro is your winner this year. Astro's the one that's going to do the heavy lifting. Astro's the one, frankly, that should be getting like 80% of the attention, or at least 70% of the attention, right? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with obligation, marketing obligation or something. But Kevin G, again, super hyped for Astro. Jeffrey Granda with a super chat says, I'm no punk, got mine pre-ordered. Y'all can't wait. Well, you know what? You're not the only one, Jeffrey, because I will tell you, regardless of the fact that there are 0 PlayStation 5 reviews out there right now, I just checked the PlayStation Store this morning, and Black Myth Wukong is, I think, the second most pre-ordered game just behind Call of Duty, which is crazy. If you look at the top 10 most played games on PS5, it's on the top 10. Like, it's clearly going to do very, very well on PlayStation 5. There's no doubt about that. I just really hope, for the sake of the developer, for the sake of the people buying the game, and for the sake of everybody who is excited for this, who's planning on playing on console, I just hope that there aren't any major issues, because that's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a bloodbath if that happens. But you're not the only one, Jeffrey. And we have Kyle with a super chat here. Thank you for that, buddy, saying Astro is driving its sales without marketing. I could not even pre-order the controller. It was sold out. Doubt it needs the marketing. Yeah, that's another way we could view it. That kind of falls in line with, the idea that Concord needs it more than Astro. And that's true. But I don't know. I just feel like with a lot of Sony's other big games, because you're right, Kyle, it is selling without having a major marketing push. But I feel like with Sony's other like tentpole games like Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon, etc., when we would be this close to launch, I mean, they were like firing on all cylinders. It was like you could not move, you couldn't even breathe without having God of War shoved into your face somewhere, which, it's normal. And I think that's to be expected for those big tentpole titles. But that's why I think the situation with Astro and Concord is a little bizarre, because it's like, I know AstroBot is not a tentpole title for you, but neither is Concord. And that's why it's so strange to me to see Sony marketing Concord like it is a tentpole title. And I know that they're trying to make it a thing, but it's like, Sony, it's just a bad look, in my opinion, to be giving Concord the same amount of attention and hype marketing, so to speak, if you want to call it that you would your tentpole titles. It's just not a good look. And then, Kyle, you have a follow-up super chat. You're saying, I actually don't want more AstroBot spoilers. Yeah, there is that side of it as well. I guess I didn't think of that, because it is true that AstroBot's not going to be like a 40-hour single-player game, or like a 30-hour, 25 to 30-hour single-player game. Maybe they do have a limited amount that they can show. I guess that's another thing, too, that does work in Concord's favor, where Concord is a multiplayer shooter, so it's like, we can just really show as much as we want. We're not giving anything away. So, yeah, I guess there are different things like that to consider. I just want to say, though, I could be completely wrong. This is just me judging what I'm seeing on August 16th. Who knows? Maybe the moment Concord releases on August 23rd, as soon as it's out, like, Sony just hits the ground running, where at that point going forward, all you're going to hear about is Astro. That absolutely could be their plan. MPG, Concord is a tentpole title. It's probably just going to flop hard right off the gate. That'd be crazy if Sony considered Concord a tentpole title right now. But we have OK with a super chat saying, why no video on Final Fantasy 16 to Xbox, remember, but one on Forza to PlayStation? I actually don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, is there a rumor about Final Fantasy 16 coming to Xbox? The last thing I heard about Final Fantasy 16 was that it's going to be releasing on PC sometime soon. Other than that, I don't. Yeah, this is news to me. If you could tell me where it's coming from, I could look into it. Maybe talk about it more in depth. It's you're saying nothing concrete, just speculation. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there were conversations before about maybe Square Enix porting Final Fantasy 16 to Xbox, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did that, just because I feel like Square Enix is in a very bad position right now, and they really need anything that they can get. MBG, don't look from a feeling standpoint. Logic. Astro has enough recognition to sell. Sony could lose a lot of money on Concord. Repetition can have the game get initial sales. Interesting, Shadowlink. Interesting. Antonio, you're saying MBG Nate the hate alluded to it on a post and reset error. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't hear anything about that. I'm not surprised, actually, if that kind of got lost somewhere, because all I've been seeing floating around, and we're going to talk about this on Sunday. I'm not going to talk about it today, but all I've basically been seeing is conversations about Black Myth Wukong and conversations about the next wave of Xbox games coming to PlayStation. That's about it. I would have thrown that in the video if I'd known, though. But yeah, Final Fantasy 16, I think it's safe to say it's probably not selling much at this point. Certainly not that well at this point in time. So it's going to need PC, and if they want to bring it to Xbox, if they feel as though it's worth it, I mean, I don't know how well it would sell on Xbox, but if they can make any money, it's better than nothing, I guess. But thank you for the super chat, okay. We also have a super chat from Cypherpunk. Thank you so much for that, buddy. You're saying you think Microsoft going to the PlayStation to PC route, Grounded's initial release was 2020, Sea of Thieves 2018, Horizon 5 is from 2021. Hi-Fi is the exception, as they shut them down and wanted to bring money in, bringing most IPs to PlayStation 3 plus years after launch. So basically what you're trying to map out here, Cypherpunk, and again, I'm not going to get too deep into this conversation because I want to save it for Sunday, but it sounds like what you're basically asking here is, based off of the pattern, if we can call it that, what we're seeing right now, there seems to potentially be a pattern of games that are about 3+ years old. Those will be in consideration to be brought over to PlayStation. It's a pretty decent theory, I will say, Cypherpunk, because, it does, like, there is logic behind it. The only problem with it, I would say, is that it's just we have a very limited amount of data to work off of here. I swear to God, Rich Rod, you are going to get banned. Rich Rod, really quick. Rich Rod is going to be the reason why I put a character limit on $1 direct donations. It's just unfair, Rich. It's just not fair. But Cypherpunk, getting back to your super chat here, I think the problem is we have a very limited amount of data to work with. We have a ton of rumors, a mass amount of speculation, but very limited data. And so what I would say is, again, the logic is there. That could be the way Microsoft is approaching it, but I think it's more likely that the way Microsoft is approaching it is very much on a case-by-case basis, where they're not going to limit themselves. They're not going to put themselves in a specific box and say, well, if it's not 3+ years, it's not going to be considered. I think that it's just a matter of strategy. It kind of reminds me of the way we see Sony handling PC, kind of like what you're saying here, where Until Dawn Remake is a good example, right? Until Dawn Remake is a single-player game, and it is a remake, And I don't know that we would count it as a tentpole title, but it's a game that did really well on PS4. That game is launching, again, single player, day and date on PC. And, you know, I don't know that anybody is necessarily jumping to the conclusion that, oh, okay, well, if Until Dawn Remake is launching day and date on PS5 and PC, then that must mean Death Stranding 2 is, or Wolverine is, or Naughty Dog's next game is. I don't think people are doing that type of jump, but what it does reveal is that Sony is very much not limiting themselves and putting themselves in a box where it's like, well, it's a single player game, so we're not going to put it on PC day and date. No, what they're doing is they're kind of just like, okay, it's a single player game, but it's a remake of a game that came out 10 years ago, and nobody will probably care if we put this on PC. This is not the equivalent of putting, say, you know, Wolverine day one on PC. It's very different. I think that's basically the exact same approach that Microsoft's taking, where it's like, what games make the most sense? What games are not going to cause damage necessarily, you know, or make people super upset or cause backlash? What games are going to be able to make the most money while mitigating the amount of backlash and potential erosion, right? I think that's essentially the strategy here. Again, it's a matter of trying to have their cake and eat it too. And I see that Mrs. MEG is coming in and dropping a membership gift for you guys. W's in the chat for Mrs. MEG. She's keeping the member train going. Giving back. Thank you for that. Rich Rod, I demand you gift the membership right now. She says we have to wake up, boss. Not yet. Not yet. Oh, wow. That was instant. Holy crap. Rich Rod was already on it. Yo, that was crazy. I was not expecting that. I said, Rich Rod, I demand you donate a super, or you drop a membership gift right now, and literally a couple seconds later, boom. We were on the same page there. He knew. Yeah, now I have to read it. There you go. That's fair. He drops a membership gift. I'll read the chat. But Cypherpunk, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I also want to let you know, Cypherpunk, definitely tune in to Sunday stream, because we're going to be diving into Black Myth Wukong in just a minute here. Sunday stream, we're going to be talking all about what's going on with Microsoft and apparently the second wave of games coming to PlayStation. But Rich Rod, let me add... Why is that not working? My member counter is glitched out right now. All right, so I do apologize in advance. This may get a bit annoying as we go. Sorry about this. And we have Ragu Bagu coming in, following up Rich Rod by dropping a 5-bomb. Ragu Bagu says, you know what? We're going to keep this thing going. We need to get closer to that 25 goal so we can wake the beast. Thank you so much, man. That brings us up to 13 members on the day. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
For everybody who dropped some membership gifts. Uh-oh. I think he's waking up. So let me update this. Good stuff. Good stuff. I do have to read Rich Rod's direct donation. It's only fair. Apparently, the people demand it. Lucky for Rich Rod. I'm not reading your name on here, though, Rich Rod. He says, MB Gangsters, stand up. Colt Eastwood, you are a sucker. You and your Xbox fanboys go and cry tears of sadness to soften that dirt up when you dig that grave for CB. You are chumps and wanksters. MB Gangsta and I will jump you. I love it. I love how you have to throw me in there. We'll jump you and watch you cry. MB Gangsta, stand up. Rich Rod, I feel like you are continually trying to one up yourself with the level of violence, but now even throwing me in there. You're saying I'm going to go out there with you, and we're literally going to jump. We're going to inflict physical violence on Xbox fanboys. You need to calm down. Calm down, Rich Rod. I can feel how heated you are. Now boss wants to get in on it. See what you did? See what you did here, man? I do appreciate the donation, though, Rich Rod. I will say, you mentioned Colt Eastwood a lot. Look, I don't have beef with anybody because it's not that serious. It's just, we're just talking games. But man, I did come across a tweet of his, I guess with the rumors coming out. The rumor was like, oh, Forza Horizon 5. I don't know if I believe it at this point. Seems like that might not be the game, but there was the rumor for like a day that Forza Horizon 5 is coming to PS5. And I saw his like tweet where he was like, I don't have it up in front of me. I don't have it word for word, but he was basically saying that like it's good because it's nice of Microsoft to bring their first party game over, their open world racer to PlayStation and making up for PlayStation Studios shortcomings or something. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you, man? Like, it was just such a weird, but also, I guess, kind of expected thing to see where it's like, okay, I get it. I guess that's one way of viewing it. Will I try Forza if it comes to PS5? Oh, yeah. Forza would be a day one buy for me. Yeah. I've always enjoyed specifically Forza Horizon. It's always probably my favorite Xbox game. One of my favorites. But if it comes, it comes. If not, not a big deal. Sure, eventually it might. But thank you guys for the donations here. All right, here's what we're going to do. That was basically a really super long intro with some super chats, which is all good. I appreciate the support. I'm going to ask you guys to hit the like button. The time has come. The time has come for us to check out what's going on with the Metacritic score, the reviews of Black Myth Wukong. I just updated it. Let me bring it up here on screen, at least the Metacritic score itself. Oh, hold on. My bad. There are a couple of outlets that apparently gave this. Hold on. There we go. So there you can see it's sitting at an 82 currently on Metacritic. Generally favorable. 39 positive reviews, which make up 75%, and 8 mixed reviews, making up 15%. Something doesn't quite add up there. But yeah, well, that is weird. What's going on there? I don't know if this is a glitch or what. So what do you think? So again, it's worth noting this Metacritic score that we're looking at only PC. You're saying read Screen Rant's review? You're not the first person to recommend. Yeah, maybe I'll check that out. A couple of people recommended specifically Screen Rant. I'll go see what they rated it or what they scored it. New Soul 9, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying MBG Xbox shouldn't get any backlash for putting games on PS5. They never get any backlash for putting their games on PC. Doing it on PS5 is no different. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, New Soul 9. At this point in time, I actually do agree with you. I just think that it's inevitable that if they take a major like pillar franchise like Forza or Gears or Halo, and they were to just be like, okay, we're putting it on PS5, it's the nature of the beast where it's like you spend multiple decades not doing that and making those games the reason why people would want to invest in your platform, and then being like, well, actually, we're done with that now. There's inevitably going to be some backlash, but I am in agreement with you in that at this point in time, it seems clear that this is the direction they're going in. And I don't think it should necessarily make people mad or upset. I just think as we go further into the future, we're going to see just more multi-platform stuff, not just from Microsoft, but generally speaking, from every platform holder. So I appreciate the super chat, New Soul 9. Waylark with a super chat saying, "Why does the score matter? Play games for yourself." I'm mostly in agreement with that. Like I've said for me personally many times over that usually like 98% of the time, scores don't determine whether I'm going to play a game. And even in the case of Black Myth Wukong, I can honestly say that it's not going to make the biggest difference. Like, for example, seeing it at an 82 doesn't make me think, oh, I'm less excited for it. No, the only thing that I'm, again, kind of waiting for is PS5 performance. But I do think that with a game like Black Myth Wukong, it is very much justifiable for people to basically say, like, look, I need to see what's being said about this game from reviewers before I commit to purchasing it. Not to say that it should be the end all be all, but it is like it's their first game being made. It's got a ton of hype around it. Everything they've shown in some Jesus boss, why? How do you even make it up here like that? But in some cases, some of the stuff that they've shown, it looks like a little too good to be true in some of the trailers. Oh my God. I'm just going to have to start working out with boss, like using him as the weight because he's getting heavy. Like I already got a pump in my delts now just from carrying him like that. But I think this is one of those cases where it is fair and understandable why people are going to be much more interested in the review scores. Like, I think about a game like AstroBot, right? AstroBot's a game that I'm 100% buying and playing. Even though I mentioned earlier that Sony should be marketing it, or at least I would have thought they would have marketed it more. I personally don't need to see any more. Don't do it, boss. I don't need to see any more because I'm already sold on it. That game could, that's a game where it's like, I do not care what the reviews say. I'll be interested just for the sake of conversation, just for the sake of conversation. What did it get review wise? But it's not going to determine my purchase decision. Black Myth Wukong, I think, is a little bit different for a lot of people because I think really what people were waiting to see with Black Myth Wukong is it going to have some kind of fatal flaw? Is it really a Souls-like or not? But Waylark, I get what you're saying, man. A lot of times I do think you got to go with your gut. You got to go with your instinct. Boss, you need to stop being bad, dude. No, stop it. Stop. He's getting restless. Guys, we need to get to that 25 member goal. The beast has awoken, and he's not going to let me talk about my topics. The dude, a member for 15 months, says, "What's up, y'all? Wukong reviews look great aside from some Western journalists are giving it the China tax. Sad that gaming is gatekept in the West." Interesting. As we dig deeper here, maybe we'll see what you're talking about. I will say an 82 on Metacritic is good. Like that is a very, especially considering it's their first time making a game, a first AAA game. I'd say that's very good. And I see we have OK coming in, dropping a single membership gift. OK is answering the call here. As boss is trying to get my attention by chewing my wires. Thank you for that, bud. That brings us up to 14 members on the day. Oh my God, why will it not let me add it? That is extremely annoying. I apologize, guys. We have some technical difficulties occurring today. Oops, hold on. See, this is what I mean. So, yeah, you bring us up to 14 on the day, okay? Appreciate the continued support, bud. Screen Rant. All right, so I guess we could start off with the review from Screen Rant because a lot of you guys are recommending I go check it out. Let me find their review. I have all of them listed here. Did they give it a lower score or a higher score? Screen rant. So I guess it must have been a lower score because now I'm getting into the 70s. Oh, wow. Okay, Screen Rant gave it a 6 out of 10. Let me go. Okay, they only have the synopsis here, or like the gist of it. All right, I have the review up in front of me now. Screen Rant, Black Myth Wukong review, a Souls-like action hype train is a little off the rails. And before I continue, we have Fishy Queefs. Always love your name, man. Long time no see. You're saying, what's up, MBG? I haven't been able to watch the streams as much lately because of work, but I just wanted to stop in real quick to super chat. I hope all is well for you and everyone listening. Well, thank you so much for that, Fishy Queefs. I appreciate you. Yeah, I said the thing. I appreciate you stopping by, man, and dropping some support. I'm glad you can still make it to some of the streams, though. You know, glad you can still stop by and make me read your name like that. I did say it, yeah. I don't know, man. It just feels like I have to, you know. I mean, you used to drop a lot of membership gifts back, you know. I think it was like last year, and I think you temporarily changed your name, so I didn't have to keep reading it. But it's okay, man. It's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat, bud. And I'm doing well. I think everybody here is doing well. I said it twice. Yeah, I did. I did say it twice, didn't I? All right. Before we get too off the rails, boss. Okay, boss. Listen, guys, we need an 11 bomb. Yeah, it used to be Herpy Derps. Not as bad. Not as bad. But we need an 11 bomb up in here. We need 11 memberships gifted stat. Okay, because boss is getting straight up aggressive here with me. He is demanding treats. Somebody's got to make this happen. Help me out here, guys. It's more for me than him. No, it's more for him than me. There we go. Come on, man. I got to read this review. I got to see what they're saying. All right. Oops. Keep clicking on the wrong thing here. All right, so we have the written up review from Screen Rant for Black Myth Wukong. It says, in the role of the Destined One, Black Myth Wukong takes players on a cinematic, story-driven experience in an action RPG based on an adaptation of Journey to the West, using dynamic combat and skills to defeat formidable enemies, cunning spirits, and the mythic Yaogwai, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Players traverse through breathtaking landscapes, from lush forests to towering mountains and mystical temples. While there are elements of great design by developer Game Science, engaging narrative, and varied boss fights especially, Black Myth Wukong also presents issues that can severely impact the gameplay experience and I thought they were going to say replayability, but reliability of the game. Taking into account its controversies with the current modern gaming audience and expectations of Souls-like games, now I see why you guys pointed me in the direction of this review. Whether Black Myth Wukong lives up to the hype is questionable at best. So they give it 3 out of 5 stars. The pros: combat is fluid and fun. Cinematography can be breathtaking at times. Great diversity in items and mechanics. The cons: game performance is unpolished, lacking in inclusivity and diversity. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Okay. Do I need to read anymore? Gameplay becomes I love how that's just smack dab in the middle there. That's just smack dab in the middle, bro. And Fishy Queefs. Why'd you do that, man? Why'd you make me scream your name like that? Right after, like, just out of nowhere, people are like, whoa, MBG, do you have, what's going on, bro? You okay? And Fred Vance. There's a lot going on right now. Fishy Queefs, bro, thank you so much. You dropped 11 membership gifts. You answered the call specifically so we can feed the beast.
Boast, do you read me? It's time to feed the beast.
He knows, dude. And Fred comes in and follows it up with a single membership gift, bringing us to 26 members. It's time. Boss, you better leave me alone after this, bro, okay? Look, they did it. They did it for you. They did it for you. Okay? Eat up, man. Please take your time. Please take your time. So, once again, Fishy. That's what I'm going to keep it there. I don't want to, don't want to go too far with it. Fishy and Fred both come in. They tag team it. They crush the goal. Thank you so much for that, guys. Let me update that. And yeah, so I'm a little bit disturbed though. Like, I'm happy. I'm very happy for the support that you guys are showing. I'm just also very disturbed at this Screen Rant review that part of the con, like one of the cons they list is lacking in diversity and inclusivity. Like, are you kidding me? You can't be serious. Dude, you were playing as a freaking literal monkey, man. What are you talking about? Like, what the F are you talking about? This is why, man. This is why nobody can take reviewers or journalists seriously anymore. Let me update this member goal, though. Everything seemed fine up until that point. Western world problems, sadly. Yeah, well, let's continue on here and see. Let's see what else they have to say. So, before I continue, I just want to say it is this review automatically. I feel like it just. I'm gonna read more of it, obviously, and I'm curious now. But in terms of the impact that this Screen Rant review is going to have on me, not zero. Doesn't mean anything. Like, this review, as far as I'm concerned, is disqualified when a negative con here that they list is lacking in inclusivity and diversity. Get it out of here. You're disqualified. I do not care about your opinion at this point. It means nothing to me. Not that it really meant that much to me to begin with, but any chance there could have been is gone, because that's like the last thing I want to hear. Especially when we're talking about a game. Like, that's the last thing I want to hear in general, but especially when we're talking about a game where I'm playing as a monkey man. Okay? Go away. Anyway, it says here, in its optimal settings, Black Myth Wukong is a cinematic masterpiece with stunning and captivating visuals that truly immerse you in its world. It has achieved high amounts of detail and beauty in the mundane, as well as its vast landscapes, from the reflections in rippling water to capturing the veins of every single tiny leaf of flora surrounding you. It's a shame that due to its appalling performance, appalling, it isn't possible to see and appreciate these visuals. These fatal flaws consist of frequent stuttering, severe lag, desynced audio, and terrible frame rates. Aside from the frustrating amount of stuttering, the frequent cutting of audio also heavily impacts your experience, especially during boss fights if you're relying on audio cues. With the recommended specs for the game that should allow for optimal performance, many areas from Chapter 2 onwards are entirely unplayable and become only marginally better when on the lowest graphic settings. As it is currently, unless these issues are subject to change in an upcoming patch, I don't see many players being able to run Black Myth Wukong if it is this problematic on recommended specs. Should Game Science fix these issues, it would certainly change our final scoring. See, this is the first review I'm reading, and that I'm trying to figure out, are they... This sounds like they have to be exaggerating a bit, or maybe they are just, I don't know what's going on here, because that they're making it sound like, they straight up say like this game is like unplayable after chapter 2 or something, and I'm like, well, how is it sitting at an 82 on Metacritic if that's the case? That doesn't make any sense to me. But Henry 3K, you're saying this review is straight brain rot. Did they see any woman layer on the game? Is there a specific amount of women needing to be present? Yeah, I'm curious to see what they have to say when we get to that section. I did see that there was some stuff circulating online where like people are saying that Black Myth Wukong is like pushing against the agenda and whatnot in gaming. Piper says he's not an alphabet monkey. Oh, damn. Damn, Piper. Josh, a member for 7 months, says, I tried warning y'all. It's very concerning when IGN absorbs all gaming media for this kind of hive mind agenda pushing BS besides Screen Rant. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that, Josh, that IGN basically bought a bunch of other major like video game publications and outlets. Very concerning. And New Soul 9 here with a $10 super chat. Thank you, buddy. Saying, MBG, does the type of people you mentioned, MBG, does the type of people you mentioned, they should have left 2016 when they announced they're going to PC. If they still stay around, that's more of a you problem because they told you straight up their model change. Again, I'm 50-50 with you here, New Soul 9. I agree that in 2016, when Microsoft announced that they're going day and date with all of their first-party games on PC, that is a huge cue at that time where it's like, okay, maybe I'm going to go to PC because now there's no point for me to own a console. But I'm only agreeing with you 50% because we do have to acknowledge, and I think maybe you disagree with this, but I can't see it any other way. You do have to acknowledge that there is a difference between, okay, we're putting all of our games on PC versus we're putting all of our games on PC and a chunk of our games on the competing console. You know what I mean? I feel like that to me, there's an objective difference there where you're speaking to two different types of people who like to play on console specifically versus people who like to play on PC specifically. So we also have Machito Swing, hopefully I said your name correctly, saying no pronouns, 3 out of 10, while laughing. I can't wait to find out that, yeah, they're gonna give Concord bonus points for that Screen Rant. Hold on. All right, let's continue on here though. But New Soul, thank you for the super chat, buddy. New Soul, here's what I'll say. Show up on Sunday, okay? Make sure you show up to Sunday stream because we're going to be talking all about that. Combat is engaging and addictive. One of the best features of Black Myth Wukong is its combat, showcasing an extensive variety of abilities that players can select from and hone. In the main menu, you can put your levels, known as sparks, into several categories. This consists of everything from foundation skills like stamina, martial arts, and survival, to staff stances, mysticism, spells, and more. At first glance, this can seem overwhelming as players have so much to consider when designing their general combat style, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing as it allows you to truly customize and create a build that best fits your playstyle. As far as how combat performs itself, players only use a staff as their main weapon, which is clearly an intentional move by Game Science, wanting players to have a pure melee-focused fighting experience with the abilities and skills available aside from your weapon. And with all the varied combos and stances that players can channel through their staff, combat isn't repetitive or boring, but extremely fun, engaging, and satisfying. One unique feature that Black Myth Wukong introduces is that there's no blocking or parrying system aside from a spell with a cooldown, making you rely solely on dodging. While this is an integral skill in many Souls-like games, not having any other means for defense forces players to learn how and when to effectively deal damage while keeping themselves safe. This vulnerability adds a challenging layer to boss fights, penalizing players who haven't mastered this skill. Says the main downside to how combat performs in Black Myth Wukong is that most light attacks feel somewhat weightless and static and can be spam clicked to take enemies down. While this isn't the case with bosses, it is mainly the heavy attacks and combos that feel impactful when inflicting damage from their uses. Moreover, there seem to be no stealth-based abilities that would thematically fit in the realm of this Souls-like world. I would have enjoyed being able to sneak up behind enemies and deal critical hits with my staff, or climb up onto higher ground and deal a quiet jump attack. This seems like somewhat of a missed opportunity given the landscape and environment surrounding you. So this is very interesting to me, at least when talking about the combat here. How do you guys feel about that? I'm curious. How do you guys feel about Black Myth Wukong? It's really not practical to parry or block. Apparently, you can't really do either of those things unless you're using a specific ability, but it does have a cooldown. It seems like the devs intentionally made it so that you really do have to focus on timing, on dodging. This to me is interesting because it does sound like you're going to have to pretty much, I mean, I don't know how challenging the game is, right? I haven't heard anything about that. This individual is saying that it does inherently make it a little bit more challenging, but I think it is turning into one of those situations where if you do get stuck, maybe the only way through is you're just going to have to really learn the moveset and timing, right? Very timing based game, which can be very satisfying, but they didn't explain too much about this ability that you have to block or to parry on a cooldown. It does make me wonder, like, can you upgrade it to where you can use it more times, or you can drop the amount of time it takes for it to cool down and you can kind of, like, maybe you can get through a boss battle by mostly blocking and parrying, or is that just not possible? IGN said it's harder than Elden Ring. That's interesting. I mean, it does make sense, though. You know, you basically only have one weapon with your staff and you have a bunch of abilities. It sounds like you need to learn how to leverage these different abilities. Based off of what I'm getting here, it sounds like you really have to learn to master these abilities and figure out which ones are going to work against or most effectively against certain bosses and the timing of them while learning how to properly dodge. All right, let's continue with this. I mean, Elden Ring, yeah, that's the thing. Elden Ring is quite challenging, I would say. There are certain parts of Elden Ring that I struggled with, certainly. But the thing about Elden Ring is you have so many different play styles and weapons, right? You can really just, you can go in so many different directions to overcome your challenge that you're facing. I feel like that's a huge difference. See, that's what's weird to me. I want to say, I've been seeing so many comparisons to Souls-like games, right? So many comparisons of it's a Souls-like, it's similar to Elden Ring, you know, Bloodborne, whatever. I don't know, man. Nothing about this game so far is sounding anything like this. Like, the only similarity here I'm seeing between this game and any Souls games are boss battles. That's it. Just the fact the game has boss battles and a lot of them. Outside of that, there doesn't seem to be any similarities. They seem to be very different. And I think maybe I won't know until I play the game myself and read more reviews here, but it's almost starting to feel like the amount of comparisons that are being made where they keep mentioning Souls-like, Souls-like, Souls-like. It's starting to feel like at some point we're starting to do a disservice to some of these games by constantly comparing them to this, you know, to Souls games. Because again, I just don't, what I'm hearing right now does not sound like a Souls-like at all. But let's continue on here. All right, so Black Myth Wukong does not make use of its environment. While Black Myth Wukong did a beautiful job of creating an immersive and stunningly captivating environment with vast landscapes, the main criticism lies with its interactive limitations. The majority of the landscape cannot be utilized, limiting players' mobility and maneuverability while exploring. Considering that the Destined One is a monkey, Black Myth Wukong missed a wealth of opportunities in exploration that would have transformed the game into a much richer and fun experience when it comes to mobility and movement. The inability to use terrain to your advantage and demonstrate parkour abilities is a huge shame when the world appears to be so interactive. The restriction of movement makes gameplay fairly linear, in which the environment purely serves as a mean to get from place to place with pretty views in the background. Chapter 2 does provide a much more explorative and open space, feeling more like an RPG, but is still fairly vacant, and the Destined One's lack of maneuverability and mobility is all the same, but in an expanded landscape. On the surface, there's a lot more to see, but instead the environment makes it far more tedious to get to certain bosses while unable to traverse them properly. All right, so this specific point, I don't know how I'm feeling about this. On one hand, it kind of feels like this reviewer is making it sound like they want the game to be open world and they want to be able to, like, I don't know, I guess move like a monkey and climb trees and shit and jump around, and that would make the game funner. And it's like, it just starts to get a little bit weird to me, where it's like, okay, it's just starting to sound like you have a problem with the linearity. And I have a problem with that because too many games these days are like, we got to be open world. It's like, but do you? Yeah, we got to make sure you can explore everything, but do you? Is it maybe okay to just have a linear game? Is it maybe okay to sometimes have a game where you are just going from point A to point B to point C to point D, and that's the progression? Yes. To me, the answer is absolutely yes. I don't think we have enough of those games. I don't know. I don't know, man. I mean, maybe being able to traverse more would, in different ways could be better, but I don't know, man. It just seems like a weak point, weak negative. And we have Sage Infinite coming in. Sage Infinite comes in and drops 5 more membership gifts for you guys. Keeping the member train going today. Thank you so much for that, Sage. Appreciate the support. Just a reminder, if you were lucky enough to be gifted a membership today by all of the generous gifters here, we have a new podcast episode coming out tomorrow for members. It should release late tomorrow. And we did recently do a members lounge. You can go check that out as well. So Sage, once again, man, thank you for that. That brings us up to 31 members. So let me update that. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't like different means of traversal in games. I do, but I don't know, man. It just feels a little bit weak to me to basically say, like, I don't like walking around in a linear game to get from point A to point B, and basically say, like, I wish I could do this instead. It's like, I don't know, man. Saying I think he's talking about interaction with the environment. I mean, yeah, I get that. I guess the way I'm visualizing what they're saying here is, it's like I'm walking through these environments where it looks as if I should be able to, like, if I'm walking down this path, but there's like a bunch of, I don't know, awesome, like, I was just gonna say like trees, but like there's like basically an awesome landscape next to me. It feels like I should be able to turn right and go interact with that landscape, but I can't. And it's like, all right, yeah, I get that, but at the same time, I just feel like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't think it's a negative if a development team decides we want to make a linear game with pretty backgrounds. Like, I just don't see that. Like, as long as they make it, as long as they're not selling you, maybe this is the problem, right? Like, I haven't been following the marketing of Black Myth Wukong like that closely. I don't know if the developers ever insinuated that it was going to be an open world game. I don't know if they ever clarified that, but if a developer comes out and says we want to make a linear game, and just with really pretty looking environments, I don't think that should be looked at as a bad thing. I don't think that should be, the only time I think that should be used against it is if they, if they like tried to insinuate it would be open world. All right, Fishy. I'll catch you later, man. Thank you for stopping by and thank you for the support, bud. Very much appreciate it, man. We have King Sam here with a super chat. He says, "Hey MBG, hope you and your family are doing well." Well, thank you for that, King Sam. We are doing well. I hope you and yours are doing well too. You're saying really want to play Black Myth, but waiting for the disc version. Hopefully the wait isn't long. Yeah, you're not the only one. I've seen a few people saying that they're just going to hold out and wait until a physical copy is announced. As of right now, there's no confirmation on like when that's going to happen. There's no announcement. But I am hoping it's sooner rather than later as well, because yeah, I'm not looking forward to having to buy the game digitally, but if it's the only way, it's the only way. There was that one insider, Ignis Lunatic or something, or Lunatic Ignis, I think his name was. I don't know if he's legitimate or not, but he spoke about this recently, and what he said is that they're planning on getting a physical version out in less than a year's time. So, again, they didn't announce that, but that's what he's saying. So the wait might be a little bit. We also have Disco Cobra 2013 with a $20 super chat. Thank you for that, Disco Cobra. It's good to see you around. Again, you're saying, I did have this on my radar months ago. I've heard it's not a Souls-like, which many have tried to say. I'm not much of a Souls guy, though. Not enough patience, probably, LOL. I hope this will be good. Well, yeah, that seems to be the big question right now that people are still trying to figure out based on these reviews is how much of a Souls-like is it? Is it very much like a Souls-like? And just based off of what I've seen and what I'm reading, it doesn't sound very Souls-like. It sounds like, again, the similarities are there are many different unique boss battles, and you have to get good at timing dodging and how, timing when you're going to dodge versus when you're going to attack. And that's about it. That, like, other than that, I don't know that I'm hearing much of anything that makes me think that this is similar to Souls. But yeah, Disco Cobra, I think that from what I'm hearing, like, look, I need to know how this game is going to run on PS5, because I can tell you right now, like, it's weird reading the rest of this review knowing that the reviewer basically at the top of the review said, like, this game runs terribly. The performance is terrible. That's what they said in this Screen Rant review. I'm like, okay, well, this is why I feel like I need to know what is the PS5 performance going to be like, because if it's like that, they're saying like, oh, after chapter 2, good luck, it's going to be practically unplayable. It's like, well, I don't really need to hear anymore. I'm just going to wait then. So I'll have to read some of these other reviews to see what they're saying about performance, but no PS5 reviews yet. Not yet. But yeah, this game basically does sound like a boss rush game, but I did hear, and I did read actually, that apparently there are sections in between where you are facing like mobs of enemies. Yeah, that's another thing, Disco Cobra. You're saying here with a follow-up super chat, no physical on release, probably wait then. Yeah. Yeah, if you're just finding out about that there's no physical release, I really wish that it wasn't that way. I don't like to see that, man. I don't. It reminds me of Alan Wake 2, where that game didn't have a physical release and they waited, and like a year later, like, okay, yeah, now we're going to have one. Why not just have it at launch? Just why not? Like, how can it hurt? It can only help you. It can only help you get more sales. So But Disco Cobra, thank you so much for the super chat, man. And we have Josh here with a super chat saying, isn't this their first game? Pretty impressive score. As far as I'm aware, yeah, this is their first game. And, they went big. They went big with a AAA title, and I agree. An 82 is good. That's why it's, again, I'm just perplexed by this one specific review I'm reading about the performance issues. Because if it's unplayable, I would have a hard time believing that this game would be sitting at an 82. But it goes on here saying boss arenas are equally shallow. Bosses are easier than expected. So this is another thing just right off the bat here where, again, that does not sound like a Souls game. One of the things that I think would help define a Souls game is if you're going to have a lot of boss battles, having boss battles that are somewhat challenging or very challenging. It says, moreover, bosses also don't seem to use their environment very much, except Linguzi, I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, and white-clad noble bosses in Chapter 1, but even so, to a limited degree, boss areas serve as nothing more than an arena. It is extremely contrarian to how the arenas are designed, as they appear to have utility, but don't at all. While Linguzi, again, I have no idea if I'm saying it correctly, does jump atop roofs of some surrounding buildings, it is just so that he can gain the high ground before lunging at you, which isn't a move that is unique to how the environment can be used effectively. However, White-Clad Noble uses his environment more effectively, dipping in and out of the water and utilizing it in his inherent attacks. It says here, note, aside from the many missed environmental opportunities, there are also many invisible walls that players cannot bypass. For a game that stresses the freedom of movement, this also feels bizarre. These walls also impact bosses as well, making much of their movement appear unnatural and somewhat choppy. Initially, I thought that players could take advantage of the environment by seeking protection from surrounding structures, but this feature seems to be inconsistent. Sometimes a large rock or boulder can block incoming attacks from bosses, while at other times this won't work, marring the experience and making fights frustrating. And I do have a couple of direct donations as well. Hold on, let me make sure I read those. I don't know. What are you guys thinking about that? Limited area, I guess, in the boss. I don't know. Moonshot with a direct donation says, I just want to know how it performs on PS5 and the Pro, because if everyone is saying the combat is great when it's got to be playing the way it looks in the trailers, which is what is attracting me. Stellar Blade and Tsushima both scored low 80s. Loved them both, ? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, right? You mentioned here, Moonshot, the trailers, and you really want to know. You really want to know if what we're going to be playing is the same or very similar to what we're seeing in the trailers. I mean, probably visually it'll be a little bit reduced, I would imagine, because I assume the trailers that they capture are running on like a really high-end PC rig. But what I'm wondering now is, it's the 16th. We're still getting PC reviews coming in. I just want to know, can we expect PS5 reviews before the actual launch? That's the big question. Even if it's the day before, I'll take it. If we have to wait till the 19th to get proper PS5 reviews where it's like, here's how it performs, I'll take it. But yeah, I think that right now this may actually be somewhat, not severely hurting it, but somewhat hurting this game's sales potential, because, I mean, there's no physical release, but, one of the main platforms you're launching it on, the PS5, everybody on the PS5 is basically left in the dark. And RichRod908 says, I'm not reading it that way, Rich. Jez Boredom, you have become a Colt Eastwood-like Xbox fanboy. You should be disgusted with yourself. Oh my God. I'm not reading that line. Because, look, man, you're trying to seriously cause problems. I'm not reading that line. You're saying, MB Gangsters, stand the F up. Let's take the war to these Xbox cultists. Colt Eastwood, shut your face. Jez Corden Barf That's Rich Rod's words, bro. Rich Rod hates you guys. Rich Rod, why? Rich Rod has such a problem with these Xbox, like, people, man. Oh my God. Rich, you gotta let go of the hatred in your heart, man. I'm worried about you, bro. I'm worried about you. You gotta let go of the hatred. Listen, Rich Rod, I agree with the chat. You should start 95% of your insults should just be calling people butterscotch. Butterscotch gang. I agree. Chris Brown is thinking your super chats are cringe, but we could stick with butterscotch. That's fine. I have a couple of super chats here. I have one from OK. He says, Black Myth Wukong devs said very early on, it is not a Souls game. It is clearly coming in hot and will be best to play in a year when fully patched and optimized. Yeah, I could have swore I remember hearing that as well. That early on the devs were saying it's not a Souls game. This seems to be something that any game that looks at all like it could be a Souls game, it feels like the devs really need to. It's kind of weird because like it's almost becoming like a marketing point in and of itself, where it's like it's not a Souls game. That's right. Even though you might look at this and think that's a Souls game, it's not. We're trying to tell you. I see the same thing happening with Phantom Blade Zero, although Phantom Blade Zero is it's multiple years away. The devs are very adamant about making it known like it is not a Souls-like. And it's interesting because if what you're saying is true, which I do believe it, because I swear I heard that as well, that the devs of Black Myth Wukong also said it's not a Souls game. It's so weird to see the reviewers and so many conversations just talking about it in that sense. I'm sure that's frustrating for the devs because they're like, damn it, like we told you it's not that. You know? Carl G, you're saying the live chat keeps on disappearing from my TV. Yeah, I don't know. There's some glitch. YouTube's acting a little weird today. And Corey the Legend Landiga coming in out of literally nowhere with a 20 bomb.
Holy shit.
We're going to have to feed the beast again. Twice. Corey. The legend arrives. And he crushes a second goal here, guys. He crushes another goal. We're soaring past 50 members today. Again, now that we crushed another goal, just a reminder, everybody who is gifted a membership, you're going to gain access to the Dual Sensibility podcast tomorrow, okay? Early access. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see how I'm not sure if the beta phase for the podcast is over yet. So if it's not, you might get a straight up exclusive episode. Releasing tomorrow. Please look forward to that. Corey, thank you so much, bud. Appreciate you still showing up and showing such strong support for the community. We are now sitting at 51 members on the day. That's 2 goals crushed. Thank you guys for all of your support. Let me update that. Good stuff, man. I'll see if Boss wants some more treats, too. I mean, he didn't. I don't know if he finished all his treats or not. I want it to be known as well. I feel like this is important for me to say. Any day I'm not streaming, Boss gets 0 treats. Okay? Because I see some people, they're like, oh, is he getting too many? Well, I mean, maybe sometimes he is. But these days, when I'm not streaming, he's getting 0 treats, bro. Let me tell you. He knows it. Boss. There we go. We got more. You coming? Come on, bro. Corey just dropped a 20 bomb. You got to make your presence known. How about some catnip? I promise, Corey, he's right here. He just won't. He won't jump up. It's all you, bro. Here you go. Catnip. You want some catnip while we finish reading this review? Yeah? No? Well, there he is anyway. And Matt Fu coming in. Matt Fu dropping another 10 bomb on you guys. Holy shit. Just like that, 30 more memberships gifted. We have an amazingly generous community here, guys. Matt Fu, thank you so much, bud. Let me see if I can... Where's that here? Did that show up? Hold on. Why doesn't that show up anymore? Can you hear Boss meowing? But it's not showing. Let me move it up. Hold on. He's all the way at the bottom here. Sorry, Matt. I'm just trying to... There we go. There we go. Boss is saying thank you. Such a baby meow. Look at him. He's just staring at... He's like, I can't believe you're embarrassing me like this. I can't believe you're doing this to me. But yeah, thank you guys so much, seriously, for all the support. We have an incredible community here. I can't do what I do here without your support. So we're now sitting at 61 members on the day, which is incredible. Appreciate everything you guys do for me and the community. I'm going to update this and continue on with these super chats. All right. Disco Cobra 2013 with another $10 super chat says, I think what these digital only releases are is gauging if people will actually want a physical. If enough people don't buy it digitally, then that could change that thinking. They are pushing digital. Yeah, it's possible. Like when Remedy did that with Alan Wake 2, it really did almost seem like that's kind of what they were doing. Like, well, we just don't think there's going to be enough interest in it. And then when they came out and they announced it, they're like, actually, a lot of people were pushing for this and they wanted it. It could be that, but there's also another side to it where, and I'm not saying this is specifically what's happening with Black Myth Wukong, but I do believe that it is a matter of maybe getting certain people to double dip on sales, where I think that these developers understand and these publishers understand that, you know, there are going to be people where they're not going to want to miss out on the day one launch. And they're, you know, the FOMO is going to be real where it's like, I got to be there day one. But they're also the same people that are enthusiasts when it comes to collecting physical media. And so I think the result there could very much be, well, maybe it won't be so bad if we are 6 months or a year late to a physical release, because what are the chances that we're just going to get people to double dip? But I think it is a bit of a double-edged sword as well, though, because it's all a matter of like timing, right? Right now, the hype is the highest it's ever going to be for Black Myth Wukong. And it's interesting where I can see, even just here on my channel, I'm not saying it represents a large group of people necessarily or the largest, but I have seen quite a few people express interest and potential excitement in Black Myth Wukong. And then when they found out, oh, there's no physical release, okay, I'm going to pass then and I'll wait until they do it. The problem with that is, let's say a Black Myth Wukong physical release comes like 6 months from now, 9 months from now. What other games are going to be releasing around that time? You get what I'm saying? Where it's like, by that time, the hype is going to die down for the game, and it's going to have to try to compete for the attention, you know, of players who were thinking, who would have bought it day one, But because it's coming so late, it's like, oh, I've kind of moved on, you know? Like I have other games I'm playing now or looking forward to. Maybe I'll get to it eventually. It's just a thought. You know, I think it is a double-edged sword, but what you're saying is, I think, true as well. We think about Dead Rising remaster. I think that's exactly what Capcom was doing. They said there will be a physical version of this game, but it's coming out in November, a couple months later. So that kind of made people wonder, like, okay, what's going on here? People were pointing out they're just trying to gauge how many physical copies they need to produce. So you just, like, if you want a physical copy, you have to wait like a couple months. I don't know, man. I just hope it does. I hope it's not a trend that continues, because I feel like as each year goes by recently, it seems like more and more developers and publishers are choosing to just forego physical releases. And that is, it's kind of depressing, you know? I'm going to be honest. It's a little depressing where it's like, why though? But I don't know. I guess we'll just have to continue to monitor it. By the way, I feel like I am one of those people. I hate to say it, but like I'm pretty stoked for Black Myth Wukong. Like this review in particular is not making me feel very good, but assuming that the game does perform well on PS5, I'm pretty stoked for Black Myth Wukong. I'm not stoked that I will have to buy it digitally, but at the same time, like if a year down the road they do a physical copy, like I might double dip. I don't know. No. Yeah, I'll let her in. Hold on one sec, guys. Luna was scratching at the door. She wanted to be part of this. Come on. I got some treats for you here. Feed the Micro Panther. I mean, we're over 60 members. We could do it. There you go. Uh-oh, let's see if Boss gets jealous. Boss, you can't even act jealous, bro. You can't even act jealous. Those treats were sitting there for you the whole time. He's being good. Oh, wait, hold on. Jesus. Oh my God, Boss almost just did a front flip off the freaking top of the cat tower. But there's Luna. Let me move this out of the way, or just drop it here a little bit so you can enjoy her presence. She getting bigger? You guys, look, you guys see Luna less frequently. I see her every day. It's hard for me to notice. Does she look like she's getting bigger already? We have subtext here with the super chat. It says, reviews are reminding me this is a new studio's first game. They're a small team that stoked our imaginations to think big, but couldn't pull that off. Well, yeah, one of the things that's bothering me a little bit about this is, like, at least with this one review that I'm reading from Screen Rant, they really are making it sound like I thought this was going to be an open world game. And it's like, all right, I get it. The level of interaction is not maybe necessarily we expected, but yeah, man, even if it is just a boss rush game, like I just don't think it's fair to like dock points if that's what the game is. Like, judge it for what it is. Like, oh, I would like the game to be more interactable, but that's not what the game was designed to be. And I do think that, yeah, a little bit of leeway needs to be kind of given to them here, where it's like it is their first AAA game. It seems like they're doing a lot better than a lot of other development teams would do their first time out making a AAA game. We also have Jerome Montgomery saying, if it runs fine on PC, will you play it on your PC? No. I mean, the only time I would consider playing it on PC is if, because apparently the PC, based off of what I'm reading, the PC version has issues. But if like the PS5 version is like a dumpster fire, then I would consider it. And we have a direct donation from, I think, Moonshot here, saying off topic, but why is it when multiplats sell a couple of million, including the billions install base of PCs, it's celebrated to the moon and back? But when a 3.5-year-old PS5 platform exclusive with a much smaller install base doesn't sell, I think you have a second. I'm assuming you have a second follow up. I think I know where your question's going though. I'll give it a second here to see if it comes through. By the way, guys, before we continue on here reading this review, do me a favor and hit that like button. We're sitting at 169 likes. Let's see if we can bump that up to 200 likes. It helps. Jakey Steer saying linear was expected, to be honest. That's what I was expecting too. I mean, don't get me wrong, the environments of the game looked really good, but I basically was expecting the game to be linear. I don't know why. When I was watching the trailers and the gameplay, it came off to me that way, where it's like, yeah, there's going to be some open areas for boss battles, and other than that, it's going to be mostly linear. But apparently after Chapter 2, it does open up a little bit, which is interesting. Maybe reminds me a little bit of like The Last of Us Part 2, where that game is mostly linear the entire time, except there's just a portion, the Seattle portion of the game. It's like, oh, this area is just kind of like mini open world, or just a more open area. But it's like not like that for the rest of the game. There we go. I knew it was coming. So Moonshot, I'm going to read it back to back here. You're saying, off topic, but why is it when multiplats sell a couple of million, including the billions install base of PCs, it's celebrated to the moon and back, but when a 3.5-year-old PS5 platform exclusive with a much smaller install base doesn't sell 100 million copies in 2 seconds, it's always considered a flop? Shift Up celebrated 1 million sales of Stellar Blade and they're laughed at. Rise of the Ronin, it's their best-selling game and it's deemed a flop. Final Fantasy 16, 3 million in 1 week and it's considered a flop. That's a great question, Moonshot. And I think basically what you're highlighting here is I think what you're highlighting is the potential unrealistic expectations that I'm trying to think of where they come from, but the unrealistic expectations for how games are going to perform if they are exclusive to PS5. I think maybe where it comes from, and this is just looking at it glass half full and not immediately jumping to the conclusion that it's always just the trolls. Hey, don't you start fighting. I think maybe it's when you see Sony announcing games like God of War Ragnarok or Spider-Man or Ghost of Tsushima selling 10 million plus, 15 million plus copies. I think it just creates this potential expectation that, oh, that's what all PS5 exclusives are going to do. But I think anybody who knows, honestly, anything about gaming knows that, oh, no, that's not the case at all. Like a game hitting 10 million sales is insane, generally speaking. A game hitting 10 million sales on a single platform is insanity times 3. Like, it's just very unlikely and a huge accomplishment. And then that's why, like, when people look at the sales for like some of Nintendo's exclusives, it's like mind blowing, like 30, 40 million copies. It's like, how is that even possible? So you're right. It's true that when multi-platform games sell a couple of million units across every platform or most platforms, it's celebrated like, oh, good for that game. But when it's a game that's exclusive to PlayStation, I'll tell you what it is. It goes to show that the truth is, and I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, it's like bias against PlayStation. It's not that. There are groups of people who are dedicated on the internet to trying to make it seem like if it has anything to do with Sony or anything to do with PlayStation, it's bad. It's a problem. Now, before somebody freaks out, same thing with Xbox. Okay? I'm not saying it only happens to one platform or one brand. That's not true. It happens to both of them. But it is the answer to the question, right? If you want to know why is it that when Final Fantasy 16, well, you know what? Hold on though. I want to back up here for a moment. It also has to do with what we hear from the publisher. So for example, people maybe for a game like Final Fantasy 16 are a little bit quicker to jump on that because Square Enix themselves seems to have implied multiple times that maybe it didn't do as well as they thought. So, yeah, when you hear something like that, it's going to make it much easier for people to be like, oh, well, look at that. It's a failure. Square said it themselves. It's like, well, they didn't say that themselves. They just didn't say it was a huge success. You know what I mean? So there's a bit of, context added to it that it fans those flames that are already there. To whereas like what you're saying, the studio that made Stellar Blade, they come out and they're like, we sold over like 1 million copies. And that's a big deal for them because they're not Square Enix. You always have to take into account the expectation of the developer and the publisher. And I think that a lot of times you mix that in with the groups of people on the internet that will do everything they can to make it always seem bad. It's it creates I think a potent perception, if you will, that people end up having of this type of stuff. So the reality is if a multi-platform game can sell 2 or 3 million copies across console and PC and be deemed a success, there's no reason why an exclusive game that sells 2 or 3 million copies couldn't also be deemed a success. However, we do need to pay attention to the size, scope, and scale of these games. How much did Final Fantasy 16 cost to make and develop compared to, I don't know, you just throw out any random multi-platform game that sold a couple million copies. What's the difference? Did Final Fantasy 16 cost way more? Is that why it would maybe seem like it's really not doing as well, even though it actually may have sold more copies? We have to keep it within context. I think that's the most important thing. I just think you have to be careful when you listen to people and their reactions on the internet sometimes, because people, whether they're doing it intentionally or not, I think a lot of them are doing it intentionally, they purposely remove certain context to make something seem a way that it's not. Waylark says Mario Kart 8 sold 62 million on Switch alone. That's crazy. That is mind-boggling. Do you know what Sony would do to have any of their games sell even just half of that on PS5? That's the crazy thing, dude. Not even 62 million, half of 62 million. Yeah, I know Nintendo's got some crazy IP power or something connected to their console. Like when you see something like that, Mario Kart 8 selling 62 million on Switch alone, nobody questions why Nintendo's never going to release any of their games on anything but their own console. That's nuts. It makes you wonder if Sony stuck with a singular IP from the start of the PS1 and they grew it. Like they just, every generation, they released a couple of entries in that singular IP. If they could have maybe gotten one of their IPs up to that level, maybe not that level, but anywhere close to it, Anyway, it's a different conversation. I'm getting too far off of Black Myth here. But Moonshot, thank you for the direct donations, man. We also have Chris Brown here saying, saw Alien last night, super hyped for the VR game. The imagery of one monster in the movie was the scariest looking thing I've seen. The theater gasped, LOL. Damn. And that sounds kind of sick. You're kind of making me want to see it, Chris. Yeah, I heard it's really good. And yeah, there is that Alien VR game, Incursion, I think. Did we get new info on that? I mean, the timing would be right to hear more about that now. At least I think it would. But Chris, man, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie. I'll have to check it out at some point eventually. Let's continue on here though. I feel like I've been a little bit all over the place. It's the nature of the stream sometimes. Environmental choices don't work out. The problematic placement of shrines. Another problem with Black Myth Wukong's environmental design is its placement of shrines. These vital reset points are inconsistently placed, showcasing a lack of consideration and strategic thought in how players can most effectively travel. Black Myth Wukong artificially pads its runtime out by introducing unnecessary, convoluted challenges between shrines, often placing them extremely far away from boss fights. While you must face enemies along the way, this results in players entering these confrontations with reduced health or skills under cooldowns, having used them in previous encounters. When facing the Stone Vanguard boss in Chapter 2, you must first defeat several tough enemies within a ruined village and defeat the Tiger's Acolyte boss on the bridge. The shrine to rest is just beside the next boss arena, but players cannot access it unless they defeat the second boss. While it is typical of Souls-like games to have large combat areas between rest points, as they should, most boss areas tend to have rest points close enough to allow for swift travel and to at least provide a way for you to face tougher foes fairly. The inconsistent placement of shrines generally speaks to poor game design, and it feels that particular areas take far longer than they should to get through, making them feel like more of a nuisance rather than interesting and fun to navigate. Some areas in Chapter 1 do place shrines closer to boss fights, which show that those placed too far have not been well thought out. I mean, that I get what they're saying, and I actually didn't know about these shrines. I guess it makes sense. So I guess that's where maybe it does start to feel a little bit closer to a Souls-like, but I don't know, man. They're saying here that the shrine placement is inconsistent, so that means it's bad game design, but how do you know that? If there are shrines that are purposely placed closer to certain boss battles, but there are other shrines that are not, that actually sounds like the opposite to me. That sounds like that was very much intentional. Now, if all of them were placed like way far away and it just made the entire game feel unbalanced, then I could say, okay, maybe that's poor game design. But the fact that it's not, it's 50-50, where it's like some of them are placed further away than others. It sounds, and again, I'm not trying to like defend the game. I'm just saying that actually does sound intentional to me, not necessarily like, if I play it myself, maybe I'll get what they mean. Maybe I will. Oh, actually, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. But I don't know. It's worth noting we're reading a review right now that gave it a 6 out of 10. I'm going to read a 10 and a 9 out of 10 review as well, and I'm very curious to see what those reviews have to say. Will the thumbnail for the next for the next Wukong related stream be even more zoomed in on his face? Yes. At some point, the entire thumbnail is just going to be a section of his fur on his face. You're saying check out the PC Gamer review? Well, I think we're wrapping this one up. It says, enemies and boss encounters are thrilling but repetitive. When looking at field enemies, most are quite linear, possessing repetitive attacks and movesets similar to other RPGs like the Assassin's Creed franchise, which are guilty of the following. Black Myth Wukong's enemies often wait for you to finish fighting a single entity among a crowd before attempting to attack you. Occasionally, another enemy may chime in, but it isn't necessarily more challenging to fight crowds when, in Souls-like games, enemies are usually not so forgiving. However, enemies do progressively become tougher at a natural rate as you progress in the game, exploring new moves, but they are still repetitive. I mean, that feels like a straight up, I'm going to be honest, like, again, I'm not trying to be harsh on this. It's just that entire sentence sounds like a contradiction. Enemies do progressively become tougher at a natural rate as you progress in the game, exploring new moves, but they are still repetitive. I don't know. Maybe they're saying the enemy type itself, I guess. Is that what they're trying to get at? Do you think that's what they're trying to say? Like the enemy type, like as you progress, they have different move sets, but the enemy type stays the same, and that's what feels repetitive? I don't know. It's just a little bit confusing. Oh, here we go. Hold on. There's a note underneath it. It says they are only considered to be tougher because they tend to spam attack you more frequently than lower level enemies, showcasing that enemies don't actually fight smart or intrinsically become harder. Okay. Design and choreography of boss fights. Black Myth Wukong is on par with larger Souls-like games like Elden Ring in how boss heavy it is. But then its runtime is probably half the amount, if not less. This is because bosses are incredibly frequent and are not spaced apart, very well, and therefore don't have much build-up or anticipation. Some Souls-like fans may prefer not to have much filler between boss fights, while others like to thoroughly explore and work their way up to a boss fight. Their spacing feels somewhat wasteful. Oh, hold on. Sorry, their spacing feels somewhat wasteful due to the inspired setting provided, and it would have been nice to incorporate more exploration between boss fights rather than just serving to get you from place to place in a very linear way. As you progress to Chapter 2, bosses are slightly spaced out better, giving you more to do in between, but not by much. Dude, I'm going to be honest with you, the more I'm reading this, it just sounds like this person wants this game to be Elden Ring. Is anybody else getting that vibe? Like, I'm really starting to get the vibe that this person basically played Elden Ring, decided it was one of their favorite games, and because everything they keep saying, it's like, it sounds like you're describing out like Elden Ring. I'm not saying it's bad in the context of you have to accept that this is not Elden Ring, it's its own game. And I don't know, man. It almost sounds like, what if Elden Ring was linear and didn't have as much it was linear in the full sense of the word. The map design is linear. The path to bosses is linear. The combat is linear. It sounds like this reviewer does not like the linear nature of this game. Anyway, it says, it is undeniable that many boss fights are fun, challenging, and engaging, allowing players to use their skills in so many different ways to overcome particular opponents. One of my favorite fights in particular was against White-clad Noble, a water Naga boss in Chapter 1, demonstrating a classic two-phase boss fight with a variety of weapon abilities that are difficult to overcome. He forces you to time your dodging perfectly and learn the optimal times to attack. Among the many great bosses in Black Myth Wukong, White-clad Noble is not very forgiving, and you experience the fight in a great setting that you can use to enhance your abilities if you utilize the right skills. The design and choreography of this boss fight have had a lot of thought put into it. Aside from a few exceptions, most boss patterns are quite forgiving. However, many bosses have predictable and repetitive movesets that are quite easy to learn, which can lead to a fairly swift defeat. As you progress, there are still many challenging and satisfying fights, and they become slightly less forgiving as you progress into Chapter 2 and beyond. But for Souls-like bosses, they are probably the easiest to overcome. All right, this is starting to feel like an unfair review, dude. Where it's like, why does that have to be a problem? I don't get it. Like, but you know, if you play Dark Souls game, you know what I mean? Like, it's easier than Dark Souls games. These bosses are not as hard. Like, why does that dude, why? Why? I don't understand. Why is everything being compared to Dark Souls and Elden Ring? I don't get it. It's too much. It's too much comparing it to Dark Souls and Elden Ring. I get it. There are some similarities, but for Christ's sake, it almost begins to feel like this isn't a proper standalone review of this game, as much as it feels like I'm now going to compare Black Myth Wukong to Elden Ring and Dark Souls. You know what I mean? This is what's frustrating to me with this review. Yeah, the whole idea of repetition in a game, I want to say, like, I don't know that I take it seriously ever when I read a review or hear a review about repetitiveness in a game, because the truth is every single video game can and will get incredibly repetitive. It's just a matter of how quickly does it become repetitive. But more importantly, how do you feel about that repetition? Because I don't know, man, like, I've played games where it gets very repetitive very quickly, and I don't mind because I like the mechanics. I like the way it feels. I like the repetition, you know? And if I like the feeling of the repetition, it doesn't feel boring. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the repetition. If I find enjoyment in the repetition because the gameplay quality itself is so good, that's not a negative to me. So I'm very hesitant about how much I listen to that. I also want to say, they're talking here about how some of these bosses feel a little bit too easy compared to Dark Souls bosses or Elden Ring bosses, but then they go on to say that some of them are actually quite challenging. It just sounds to me like, again, it's a matter of balance where they wanted to throw in some easier boss battles that are not difficult, and some very hard boss battles that are extremely difficult. If we are going to go on this path of comparing it to Dark Souls or Elden Ring or anything else like that, that sounds to me like the difference between a mini boss battle and a full-blown proper, this is the end of the area boss battle. You know what I mean? That's almost what it kind of sounds like to me. We have Jerry Gamer here with a super chat saying, Chinese media all gave a 9 to 10 to this game. IGN China gave it a 10, but Gamer Sky is the only one of them has rights to score on Meta. Check it out. Gamer Sky. Excuse me. Uh-oh. Try to remind me of that. If I forget, Jerry Gamer, remind me. Because I'm definitely not going to be able to get through all of these reviews. Cypherpunk with the super chat says, CCP has CCP-funded product reviewed good. Shocked. Yeah, I mean, it could be worse, right? It could be worse. Maybe, you know what? Maybe all of the Dark Souls and Elden Ring comparisons, maybe I was too harsh. All right, let's I think we're almost at the end of this review, and I'm dying to know if there's going to be a write-up section about how this game lacks inclusivity and diversity. There are some aspects of gameplay against bosses that would seem intuitive but unfold quite differently in practice. For example, when bosses use AoE attacks that originate from the ground up, it would seem possible and natural to jump over them to prevent being hit. In some boss fights, such as against Black Wind King in Chapter 1, this doesn't seem possible, which may be attributed to temporary early game bugs or poor hitboxes. Many other inconsistencies of this nature seem like they should be accounted for. Another example is when fighting against the wolf boss in Chapter 1, Lingusi, again, I don't think I'm saying that right, who performs a bite attack that does not grab or even pierce the player, showcasing a lack of weight and complexity to their moves. It says here, boss fights seem to be mainly two types, either big chunky bosses who attempt to grapple, thrash, and bash you, or quick, agile creatures that wield a weapon. However, each boss does have fairly unique attack moves, although they are still repetitive during the fight, and it's fairly easy to learn their attack patterns quickly after a few times facing them. Overall, in spite of their flaws, boss fights are undoubtedly one of the best features in Black Myth Wukong, providing you with an exhilarating experience. So I will say, that does sound a little bit concerning to me, and I am wondering if that is going to get patched, where I don't like the idea of some bosses or some boss encounters having these weird hitboxes or weird attacks where, like, yeah, if there's like an AoE attack that seems to indicate, like, naturally you should, like, it just very much seems like you should be able to, if you jump, you won't be affected by it, but yet you still are, even though it seems like nothing even hit you. I mean, again, it's hard to tell. Is that a bug? Is that intentional? And the whole idea is you aren't supposed to be anywhere near that AoE attack, because that's the whole thing, right? If it's an AoE attack that covers a certain area, I would say, like, the number one instinct for me is, oh, I shouldn't be anywhere near it, right? But I'll have to see what that ends up looking like, because that can be annoying at times. But at the end, they do say the boss battles are like one of the best parts of this game. So here we go. The part everybody's been waiting for. You guys ready? Buckle up. Largely lacks inclusion and representation. While my analysis and review of Black Myth Wukong remain focused on gameplay, it's important to mention the controversies surrounding the game's studio and the reports of misogyny and sexism from developers. Playing as a female gamer allowed me to notice issues surrounding inclusion and representation. As far as Chapter 1 and 2, while characters are clearly fictitious and fantastical creatures, there were no female or feminine NPCs, enemies, or bosses present. Fictitious and fantastical creatures, but not enough of them are female or feminine, apparently. The only exception, if you can call it female, is a boss named Mother of Stones in Chapter 2, which is nothing more than a still glowing rock with no abilities being guarded by other enemies. The lack of diversity and inclusivity resonates with the misogynistic comments reported to have been made by developers which express disdain for women playing their games, although Black Myth Wukong does have truly enjoyable Also, does anybody know what the hell they're talking about here? I've not heard a single thing about this studio being accused of misogyny, but says although Black Myth Wukong does have truly enjoyable moments, the underlying feeling that women aren't welcome in this world felt present throughout my gameplay experience. It's worth noting the game is based on the novel Journey to the West, which does consist of a few important female characters. To not include any women or only include a few in an adaptation meant for a modern audience is quite disconcerting. While this doesn't take away from the exhilaration and fun of boss fights themselves, women fans of Souls-like games may have a different perspective, especially given that, according to reports, the developers also suggested that women aren't capable of enjoying or being skilled at these types of games. The irony behind the sentiment is that Black Myth Wukong is among the easiest of Souls-like games and may have overestimated its ability to hang with them in terms of difficulty. While thematically and stylistically it undoubtedly falls under this category, it does not quite fit the bill in the technical skills required, such as it is achieved by games like Elden Ring, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and many more. Well, I'm legitimately like thrown off here with they're claiming that the studio has been. I don't understand. How do they know some of these bosses don't identify as women? The weirdest thing to me is that, most of these bosses are creatures and or animals. There's literally female story characters in every trailer. MBG, the article from Rebecca Valentine that made claims with no proof from IGN. Oh, how does it come back to IGN, dude? Oh my God. Cypherpunk, you're saying there's articles from last year about sexism and misogyny at the studio. Well, here, I have a question. Did any of these outlets that were reporting on potential sexism and misogyny, claims being made, right, and apparently no proof being shown, did they also write up recent reports about the professor and the shit that was going down apparently at Firewalk? Or did they just overlook that and ignore it completely? Makes you wonder. I mean, really, it does make you wonder, like, what the fuck's going on, bro? We're going to talk about that on Sunday, Rashab. Yeah, we're going to talk about that on Sunday. Navager says nobody cares about that. You're saying it was... Wait, Gavin, are you saying the article regarding the studio game science, are you saying it was actually debunked? MBG, we don't even know if the you said firework, but you meant to say firewalk thing is real. Well, that's the whole point with all of this, right? How do we know if any of it's real? I don't know, man. I don't know. I like, to me, this just seems like it seems like it's trying to find a problem where there actually isn't a problem, but It's 2024, so obviously I expect it. But listen, again, that was reading a review that was one of the lowest reviews. Let me check. Was it the lowest review? Yep, Screen Rant is the lowest review at a 6 out of 10. That's the review we just read. Let's go check Gaming Bolt. They gave it a 10 out of 10. All right. Gaming Bolt gave it a 10 out of 10. I'm very curious to see how their review compares to the 6 out of 10 that we just read. So Gaming Bolt says, first showcased back in 2020, Black Myth Wukong took the games industry by storm thanks to its over-the-top action set pieces and gorgeous vistas, two of the biggest factors that have defined action games over the years. With each subsequent showing, the game garnered more hype, but as experience has taught me, it's always better to keep expectations in check. Despite the consistent stream of promising gameplay footage and trailers showcasing the slick action and the beautifully rendered environments, I only ever remained cautiously optimistic. After all, there have been dozens of Souls-like and action RPGs releasing every year, and Black Myth Wukong seemed on paper like another product that is trying to capitalize on the genre's popularity. Also, the fact that this was coming from a new studio made me skeptical whether the final product will truly deliver on its promise. But after spending hours with the game, Black Myth Wukong made me realize that it not only delivers on its initial commitment, but exceeds it by quite some margin. For those who are unaware about the game's setting, Black Myth Wukong is based on the novel Journey to the West. I found the story in Black Myth Wukong to be uncomplicated and will likely be plain sailing for most players out there. Complex storytelling through environments, item descriptions, and NPC behaviors have been hallmarks of Souls-likes, but Black Myth Wukong forgoes all of that and instead relies on telling its story in a more conventionally structured fashion. This isn't Elden Ring, where you have to piece together individual threads of lore across the world, but more akin to storytelling methodologies from classic action games. So right off the bat, like, I feel like this, just right off the bat, this review already let me know this is not Elden Ring. And one of the biggest differences between this game, again, if we're comparing it, it seems like everybody's going to compare this to Souls-likes no matter what, but they're saying story-wise, it's just conventional. It's what you would expect in a regular action game where they're not going to make you try to figure things out. You're not going to have to figure things out on your own. Says here, this isn't a shot against Elden Ring, but I very much prefer my games to be straightforward in terms of storytelling, and Black Myth Wukong delivers on that front. I'm not at liberty to talk about the finer points about the lore here, but what I can say is that the protagonist's journey is appropriately adrenaline-fueled and bombastic. Intricately crafted cutscenes, a surprisingly excellent localization, and some serious dialogue delivery garnished with some comedy here and there made it easy for me to get invested in the story. So, just gotta say, man, like, this is catching me a little bit off guard, only because based off of the last review I read that gave it a 6 out of 10, I thought that there was basically no story. They didn't say much about this at all, to whereas this reviewer is saying that it actually has quite a bit here. A lot of great cutscenes, excellent localization, serious dialogue delivery, a little bit of comedy. Interesting. Definitely interesting. And I see we have Same or Sammy, I don't know how to say your name exactly, 241 coming in, deciding to join Greatness Awaits, becoming a member. Thank you so much for that, buddy. You just brought us up to 62 members on the day. So thank you for keeping this member train going, guys. And look forward to your perks, man. You'll have access to the podcast tomorrow. So definitely look forward to that. And you have access to all the previous members' content we did. I also forgot to mention, for anybody who was gifted a membership, I did do a members exclusive playthrough of Astro's Playroom not that long ago. So go check that out. Continuing on here with this 10 out of 10 review, it says, Black Myth Wukong's martial arts-based combat takes inspiration from a number of contemporaries, but more noticeably from Bloodborne, by putting its emphasis on quick dodges and swift attacks. From Software's 2015 Great focused on player reaction times heavily, and a lot that can be seen in Black Myth Wukong. A lot of that can be seen in Black Myth Wukong. The difficulty will rise as you progress further into the story, with each enemy type requiring different tactics to defeat them. The core pattern remains the same: attack, dodge, manage stamina, and then attack. Just like Sekiro, which has only one major weapon, Black Myth Wukong players will also only have access to their trusted staff, which can be upgraded as they progress through the game. All of this may feel ordinary, but the game manages to make combat more intriguing thanks to its vast set of skills, transformations, and spells. As you defeat more enemies, the protagonist will earn experience, which will in turn unlock skill points. These points can be used to unlock new staff stances, namely Smash, Pillar, and Thrust. As the name implies, the Smash stance abilities are more focused on taking enemies head-on, while Pillar will allow the players to stand on their staff and deliver long-range attacks. Meanwhile, Thrust stance is largely focused on heavy charge attacks. Each of the stances find their use case depending on the type of enemy one is facing and the style you want to opt for. I invested my points mostly in the Smash stance abilities as I found them simple to pull off, but I'm sure that more ambitious players would like to invest in other stances, as there are some really cool moves that they give access to. Points can also be utilized to improve your overall stamina, martial arts, and survival parameters. As each location brings along with its own set of challenges, the game allows you to reset all the points and set them according to enemy weaknesses. This flexibility is appreciated, as I found myself continuously invested in the skill tree, working overtime to get the right balance. The game also features a number of magical spells that can be used, like freezing an enemy, summoning a number of doppelgangers, or even transforming yourself into an enemy's form with special abilities. Most of these spells are time-based, but depending on how many points you have invested in them, you can play around with their longevity or impact. Overall, the skill system is a lot of fun, and tinkerers will have a field day with it, provided they manage to progress deep enough into the game's systems. Black Myth Wukong's progression mechanics follow the usual action RPG formula. As noted earlier, you earn levels, unlock skills, and you use them to make your character stronger. But besides earning points, players will also produce will, the in-game currency, which can be used to buy a whole lot of items like medicines and buffs. There is also a crafting system in place that allows players to build new armor parts. However, you don't need to search for them, as these parts unlock automatically as you progress through the game. Overall, I found the progression system to be simplistic, and it doesn't really have the depth of, say, a From Software game. This may not necessarily be a bad thing. It wasn't for me personally speaking, but for players who want finer control over their weapons and armor, they might be disappointed. When I first began the game, Black Myth Wukong got me confused with its world design. The game starts off with largely linear level design and then opens up into a bigger playground before becoming linear again. The open spaces are quite large and are a perfect playground to fight off against optional boss encounters and farming items. What's shocking, however, is the game doesn't feature any kind of navigation or map tools. Uh-oh. Well, that seems like a pretty major thing that was left out. Hold on, no map? What? And Sammy241, I hope you're okay with me calling you Sammy. Again, I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but coming in, dropping a single membership gift.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So not only did he become a channel member today, but he decided he wants to drop a membership gift and pay it forward as well. Very much appreciate that, dude. Let me So we're actually at 63 members. For some reason my member counter's a little bit glitched out. It'll say 62, but we're at 63. Thank you for that, man. I will say that's a little bit of a shocking revelation. There's no map. Well, I don't know though. If it's super linear, does it need a map? It says, now I'm all for unassisted exploration, but a complete lack of any navigation tools is a bit of a bummer, especially for those locations that have optional areas to visit. It's by far among the only noticeable issues I have with the game, and it's by no means a minor one. Regardless of this fault, the areas themselves have been intricately designed with stunning variety in the form of lush green forests, vast stretches of deserts, snow-filled landscapes, and more. Black Myth Wukong absolutely excels in its world variety, and even though the experience varies between being linear and open, it's a treat to explore every nook and cranny. However, the real star of the show are the boss fights. Black Myth Wukong features a ton of bosses, and yes, you will be fighting them quite often, both easy and difficult. As noted earlier, the game urges the player to tinker with its skill system, and the boss fights are where this will happen a lot. In one specific sequence, I had to play around with the system a couple of hours just to get the balancing right. Some boss fights could be downright frustrating, but but if the player is smart enough to understand their moves and patterns, it won't be too long before they are downed. Fortunately, most of them are not as difficult endeavor, which makes Black Myth Wukong a much more accessible experience compared to other action RPGs and Souls-likes. Visually, Black Myth Wukong looks absolutely stunning thanks to Unreal Engine 5, be it the character models or the intricately designed bosses. The game oozes confidence in the visuals department. I played a game on PC, and although I wasn't able to achieve a solid 60 FPS, performance for the most part was okay, with the game hovering around 30 to 45 FPS. Backing up the visuals is the excellent soundtrack, prominent mostly during boss fights, reminding the player of the stakes involved. To put it simply, Black Myth Wukong is a fantastic game. It features engaging combat, rewarding skill system, and excellent production values. Yes, it falters in a few departments, but that never really deterred me from playing the game nonstop whenever possible. Black Myth Wukong is by far one of the best action games you can experience in 2024. So they say here the good. Again, they're giving it a 10 out of 10, and Final Verdict is a masterpiece. Piece says, Final Verdict, masterpiece. Black Myth Wukong delivers breathtaking combat, stellar production quality, and unforgettable boss fights. Its few quirks don't hold it back from being one of the genre's best games in recent memory. The good, excellent combat, in-depth skill system, brilliant visuals backed by an excellent soundtrack, vast variety of boss fights, a mostly decent difficulty curve that makes the game quite accessible to most players. The bad, there's only one bad listed here, the lack of an in-game map. So, very different opinions here, man. Like, that's what's super interesting. It's fascinating to hear a review on the lowest end where the reviewers basically focused on the navigation. They seem to be upset that it's a linear game and you can't really traverse different areas. It's not open enough to them. They seem to, I don't know, they seem to be a little bit more focused on the Elden Ring / Dark Souls comparisons. While this 10 out of 10 review was still focused on the Elden Ring / Dark Souls comparisons, it was also, I will say, this review seemed to have done a better job at helping me get a better idea of how Black Myth Wukong kind of stands on its own, where it does have straightforward storytelling, and the story is not something it's not like a puzzle you're gonna have to figure out and piece together. They're saying that there is a lot of depth in the skills that you can unlock and the abilities, but it might not be as in-depth as some other games, but still does quite enough, or quite a lot. That should be enough for most people. But also focuses on the boss battles, saying, and like to me, that's the thing that shouldn't be this surprising to anybody if you've watched any footage of this game. The boss battles seem to be the highlight of this game. People still calling it a boss rush game, and I will say, yeah, like that seems like such an important thing that the previous reviewer left out, that there is no map and no navigation. That's so strange to me, and I'm really, I will say that makes me nervous, because like, I mean, I don't want to get like frustrated and feeling like I don't know where the hell I'm going or what I'm doing when it comes to like if I'm trying to unlock certain stuff, or if there are like if there are trophies attached to that, I'm a little bit concerned, because that's strange to me. I feel like that's like an extremely uncommon thing in 2024. A game without a map, even if it is linear, like no map whatsoever. But I don't know. Maybe that'll make it a more unique experience. All right, maybe I'll go through one more review though. This time, finding a review that kind of lands in the middle. So we read the review of a 6 out of 10, the lowest one. We read a review of a 10 out of 10. It's worth noting there are, one. Gaming Bolt gives it a 10 out of 10. God is a Geek gives it a 10 out of 10. Gamers RD gives it a 10 out of 10. Gamer Sky gives it a 10 out of 10. Gamer Sky is the one that you said was from, that's a Chinese publication, right? All right, let me see. Somebody recommended PC Gamer. Did they put their review out yet? PC Gamer gave it an 87. Let me check what PC Gamer has to say. These animals may not have thumbs, but they sure have hands. Tony the Tiger okay. Not the intro I was expecting. Tony the Tiger studied the blade just to carve my ass into a jack-o'-lantern. What? Clip that. Clip it and ship it. It's a masterpiece. Hold on, though. That opening line, though, bro. Whoa. Just a little caught off guard. Tony the Tiger studied the blade just to carve my ass into a jack-o'-lantern, and I'm not even mad about it. In fact, I'm impressed. The entire zoo is out for blood in Black Myth Wukong, a stunning action game clearly inspired by the Dark Souls series, but distinct enough that calling it a Souls-like doesn't do it justice. I gotta say, that's the best opening so by far. You have my attention. You have my attention, PC Gamer. Dark Souls never let me stick my tongue. Oh, wow. Okay, where's this going? Where is this going? Dark Souls never let me stick my tongue out as a giant frog and slap my enemies around with it. Okay. It never let me create a posse of clones to punch an evil pile of rocks back into the ground either. If Dark Souls is a trial, Wukong is an adventure, or if you want to be accurate about it, it's a journey to the west, but the animals have health bars. Wukong imagines a version of the classic Chinese story where a fox upgrades your healing potion. If anything about it is truly like From Software's games, it's how much it lets its rich world speak for itself. Wukong doesn't waste any time trying to establish why there's a forest of wolfmen or why you're serenaded by a man without a head. It opens with hero son Wukong laughing in the face of a council of gods who immediately punish him so hard it takes hundreds of years for him to be reincarnated as a level 1 monkey. Oh. Bro, okay, this review is doing it for me. Everything that was just said in like those last two sentences, I'm like, let's go. Reincarnated into a level 1 monkey? Fuck, this game is for me, dude. Anybody who's part of the member lounge gang, you know. This game is now, it's speaking to my soul now. Reincarnated into a level 1 monkey. Holy shit. Sorry, I'm just distracted by the way this is written. Journey to the West isn't required reading before playing Wukong, but doing so might make its world considerably less opaque. Even so, I had no troubles appreciating its eccentric cast of talking animals who are either so amusingly pathetic you pity them, or so self-serious it's like you barged in on their third act. Surprises like a gigantic frog leaping out of tall grass and a serpentine dragon clutching me in its teeth far above a frozen lake lured me forward. Every level is a series of bizarre vignettes crash landing into a seemingly straightforward quest. Wukong is overflowing with boss fights, which isn't actually as intimidating as it sounds. The difficulty of these encounters is so uneven that you never know what to expect. That's a really interesting way to describe that. You might stumble onto an oversized rat and come out unscathed, but you need to fully lock in to defeat a raging bear. Many of these bosses celebrate the spectacle rather than demanding your sharpest reflexes. A similar ethos applies to the sections between those big fights. Wukong's level design begins extremely linear, almost to the point of constricting its combat into one big highway of enemies, but it gradually opens up after the first few hours. You go from bonking wolves in a forest to tiptoeing past skeletal snake men. In the second chapter, every kind of rat shows up to snipe you from rooftops or set you on fire with clouds of gunpowder. Wukong gently presses you to take side paths that lead to treasure or side quests that will beef you up for what's ahead. In a desert area, I cleared out some shield-bearing hedgehogs and jumped down a bridge to find a man who had been turned into a rock begging for help. When I returned with an item he asked for, he laughed at me for being gullible enough to fall for his trick, a classic 16th century joke. Suddenly, I could lock onto him, so I smacked him a few times and he gave up a spell that let me parry attacks by turning to stone. Instead of dropping you into a meat grinder of tricky enemy placements between each boss like so many Souls-likes, Wukong lets these optional sections breathe so you can soak up its world before moving on to the next big battle. See, this is what's so interesting, is the way that this reviewer from PC Gamer is describing the in-between sections between boss battles is the literal opposite of the first review, and way more in-depth than even the second 10 out of 10 review, where it's like, okay, that to me sounds like the most useful description so far, where it's not like the Souls games where you're constantly being like ambushed or never know what's around each corner, but it just basically allows the game to breathe, so you can find some treasure, you can find some interesting stuff, but it's mainly just to kind of like, get more, I guess, acquainted with the world and what's scattered throughout without it being completely open, of course. At least, I don't know, this reviewer is doing a good job describing this. It says, when the fights do get tough, and some of them definitely do, Wukong's flexible skill tree and upgrade systems keep most of them from feeling like brick walls. At any shrine, Wukong's version of Dark Souls bonfire checkpoints that respawn nearby enemies. Okay, so that's another similarity. They didn't mention that before. It does respawn enemies. You can move your skill points around to invest in a number of powerful magical abilities. Investing in Immobilize gave me a tool to freeze enemies just before they landed a hit so I could heal or retaliate. Maxing out the duration of a spell that transformed me into a wolf with a flaming polearm was like having a second life for a multi-phase boss. While I wouldn't quite call them builds, Wukong has plenty of ways for you to almost nullify the nastiest parts of a fight so you can survive it. Its spells are so strong that I suspect some players will opt to fight without them, like all the Reddit people who proudly refuse to use the Mimic tier in Elden Ring. But doing so will rob you of the most satisfying elements of Wukong's combat. Aside from some minor damage upgrades to your staff, you don't have an inventory weapon to choose from. You do, however, have an inventory of creatures to choose from. Special enemies found throughout the levels drop their spirits, which can be equipped for a passive buff and a devastating signature attack, like morphing your head into a giant hammer or turning into a swordsman for one clean slash attack. Combat is largely about creating openings in an enemy's attack patterns with your spells and buying time with dodge until they're back online. Most fights are a dance of cartwheels, somersaults, and puffs of smoke as your monkey man assumes the form of various beasts that you can collect like Pokemon. Once you find the rhythm, you can go playing as a warrior to a magician. Nothing is more frustrating when that flow is broken by something you can't improve with a little better timing or prediction. In the review build of the game, a stuttering frame rate and the occasional crash ended a few early battles prematurely for me. Wukong is yet another game plagued by the curse of graphic shaders tanking performance so badly that instead of swapping your skill points, you're swapping video settings to find a combination that'll get you through the next section, and no amount of raw GPU grunt can power through it. Although Wukong has fairly linear environments, they're dense with beautiful detail like a sun-baked desert with gnarled trees or a forest of glowing leaves. It's a shame that I had to muddy any of it by knocking down my settings to medium on a NVIDIA RTX 4090. It fixed my issues without tarnishing too much of the gorgeous views, but there's a chance the experience could be even worse on launch day for people with way less extravagant graphics cards. The handful of deaths from the game's poor performance couldn't sour how impressive Wukong is as an action game and game that isn't content with living in From Software's shadow. It may have a lot of the signifiers of a Souls-like, but it wields its difficulty in a more playful, approachable way. Wukong shirks a lot of the punishing difficulty synonymous with the Souls-like genre, positioning it as one of the best games to recommend to anyone who has avoided them or for those who found how grim they tend to be. Bosses that bookend each chapter are the closest mirrors to ones you'd find in Elden Ring, but you can skip usual moveset memorization and trial and error with patience, dodging around until you are comfortable with going in. Checkpoints are never more than 30 seconds away from the bosses, too. Checkpoints are never more than 30 seconds away from the bosses, too. This makes me think that the reviewer who gave it a 6 out of 10 makes me think that maybe they were playing the game wrong somehow. Because this is the literal opposite of what they were describing. And holy shit, I'm coming back to see that Steven Leon, it's all good, man. I think we're approaching the end of this review. He comes and he drops a 20 bomb. The second 20 bomb today. Corey got the first, and Steven, he's taking it home with another 20, crushing another goal.
Holy shit.
Thank you so much for that, man. Huge support today from you guys. Sitting over 80 members now. We're at 83 members on the day. Good shit, man. So again, just a reminder to all 20 people who just got gifted those memberships, look forward to a podcast releasing tomorrow. I hope I'm not overhyping this podcast. Keep your expectations low, okay? I'm just saying, like, it's a unique, different piece of content that'll be out for members, all right? So let me update the goal here. Really appreciate the support today, guys. Means a lot. And what are we at? 83. So today the member goal caps out at 100. We can go beyond 100 if you guys want to do that. That's never a problem. We've gone beyond 100 members plenty of times in the past. The fact that we're almost at 100 is crazy. I cap it out at 100, but like if we get to like 105 or whatever, you guys know. I just feel the need to say that. I don't know. Like, it makes me think, should I just start my goal? Like, should I just, from the time I start the stream, the goal be 100 to let everybody know, like, we don't go past 100? Like, you can gift more than 100? Just because I don't want people to ever think that it's a never-ending goal. You know what I mean? Like, it's a never-ending goal. No, the goal does end. We can achieve the goal, is what I'm trying to say. We are a monkey today. I'm here for you, MBG. Well, thank you, man. It's not overhyping. It's promoting a new podcast. Yeah. Well, I automatically think the quality of the podcast, the second episode, will be substantially better than the first just because the audio is going to be a lot better than it was previously. So, it's past my bedtime. Today it's Monkey Bound Gamer. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for all the support. Let's finish up this. Oh, what happened? It kicked me out of the review. Oh, hold on. I lost my place. All right. So, yeah, I just want to highlight the fact that it says checkpoints are never more than 30 seconds away from bosses too. This is such an important thing, and I'm glad I read this article specifically because, again, the first review we read made it sound like there's something wrong with the checkpoints where it's like they're like way far away from bosses. So if you die at a boss, you're going to have to like trudge through a ridiculous amount of terrain just to get back to that boss, to where this one is saying they're never more than 30 seconds away, which sounds very, much more in line with what you would expect. It says the rewards at the end of each chapter are striking little animations, one of which is a stop-motion parable about a man who saves an injured wolf that makes your effort worth it. Oh, that's super interesting. That's the first time I'm hearing about this. Stop-motion animation. Interesting. Okay, yeah, they're showing like a picture of it here. It says those scenes reinforce the exuberance with which the game's developers drew from such an iconic work of folklore. Game science has imbued Wukong with a staggering amount of creativity. Aside from the performance issues, the biggest disappointment comes from outside the game itself. Last year, an IGN report described in detail a history of sexist remarks from game science's leaders. The studio has declined to acknowledge the allegations in recent interviews. While I didn't find anything within the game that reflects an extremely regressive view of women, although there just aren't many in the game, the behavior tarnishes what would otherwise be effortless recommendation. I'm going to have to look into this when I'm done here or when we're finished going through, because like I literally do not know what they're talking about. This is like the second review that has brought this up, and I'm like, what are they talking about? I'm going to be honest with you right now, man. The fact that they're citing IGN makes me skeptical. IGN is a joke. They are a joke, dude. So I'm supposed to sit here and take a report that came out sometime last year or whenever from IGN. I'm going to have to look into it. It's fan fiction journalism. Don't waste time on it. It's just weird to me because like there must be something to it for two separate reviews to point this out. But here's where things get even weirder, where this PC gamer review, they're saying that outside of the IGN report with these allegations, they didn't see anything in the game that reflected that. So PC gamers saying they played the game, there was nothing there that would make them think, wow, these devs are sexist and misogynistic. They're just simply saying that there was this report. And that's what's kind of weird is that, like, I don't know, they're framing it as the fact that the studio never acknowledged the report. They're saying that that's kind of like a bad look. I don't know. That just seems like it was kind of thrown in there at the end for no reason. Because it says here, and this is the final paragraph, Wukong is one of the most joyful action RPGs I played simply for how lovingly it treats its world and characters, and by extension, how much it clearly wants me to love them too. It worked. Punchy combat aside, I wanted to keep working through each area to meet another weird little creature with a mysterious quest, or get jumped by another animal who learned MMA. In a pool of games about fallen kings and sad dragons, it's delightful to play an action game that isn't obsessed with being dour, and where the best solution to the most grueling fights is to use as many fun abilities as you can. In a year with the tremendous Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, I never thought I'd play a game that veers in such a wildly different direction but manages to reach similar highs. Even if it lacks the sheer scale and build complexity as From Software's masterpiece, Wukong is its own beast, and if it has to be labeled a Souls-like, then I think we're going to have to come up with a new definition. There's nothing else quite like this. So outside of that random plug of this IGN article, outside of that, because that was thrown in there so randomly. Hold on, I'm trying to. Okay. I'm trying to check something real quick. IGN doesn't own them, right? I don't think they do. Okay. Get out of here. It's like overheating my computer. There's no proof of these accusations. Yeah, that's what's weird to me, Leo, is like this review. That's the only part of this review that kind of made me go, whoa, what? Like, the review is going great, and then they're just like, but then there's this report from a year ago. Let me go check this IGN report. What the fuck? Oh my god. This is like a whole fucking book. Okay. Dude, okay. This game, this report is huge. This is longer than any of the reviews I just read. Is there some kind of like is there anywhere where I can get the gist of it? Let me see. Hold on. Sorry for my silence here. I'm just trying to find. Hold on. I'm just looking for a freaking summary here, man. I don't know what dude, I don't know what I'm reading here. Like, I don't know if it's the language barrier, like, becoming a problem. Isn't this the devs with the CEO that said women shouldn't play this game or something of that effect? That's in the second article, second image. He said the game is not designed for women and shouldn't cater to them. And a paper that calls the tastes of women simple and to a lesser degree the tastes of men. No, he said game makers don't need to attract male gamers by saying we have a lot of female gamers in our games. So this is interesting. Somebody put this in quotes. They said, no, he said game makers don't need to attract male gamers by saying, quote, we have a lot of female gamers in our games, end quote. We don't need that kind of, end quote, female gamer, end quote, as an attention grabber. See, this is what's making me think, like, how much of this shit is just, like, mistranslations? Because those are two hugely different things. Like, the section in quotes, if that's what was said, like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. The first thing that's not in quotes, that somebody just being like, I think this is what he said, that doesn't seem very good. But they're two very different things. And we have 223 Gaming coming in, re-upping their membership specifically to Play Has No Limit. So choosing to support at a higher tier. Thank you so much for that, 223 Gaming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, man. Love to see the support. That brings us up to 84 members. Oh, there we go. It actually worked on the counter there. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all of the love and support today. You're saying those allegations already were proven to be falsely translated from quotes years ago. Yeah, that's what a couple people were telling me. And this is what's so bizarre to me is like, if these allegations were proven to be false due to just mistranslated quotes from years ago, then why is it popping up in multiple reviews? It's weird. Like, I don't even know why this is a conversation. Saying the last thing we need is Eastern versus Western game development tribalism on top of the tribalism we already have. Really worried about the direction these reviews are taking us. Yeah, I don't want to see that either. We're trying to figure out who's sexist. I mean, that's the thing, dude. Like, this is where I am wondering if the language barrier is proving to be problematic, because there is a major difference between, isn't this the devs whose CEO said that women just shouldn't play their game or something like that, versus no, the actual translation, we have a lot of, that we don't want to attract male gamers by saying we have a lot of female gamers in our games. You know, we have a lot of female gamers like playing our games. And I get what they're saying, because that shit is stupid. Like, it's stupid when you see this artificial, like, hey guys, like, you want to play our game because we got a lot of women playing our game too. It's like that shit's so artificial. It's like, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. You know, like, it shouldn't be a selling point. It just shouldn't. You know, any game should be able to speak for itself. You know? Like, if a game happens to feature more females in it than males, and that happens to be a selling point for a specific woman out there that's like, oh, I like that. That feels more relatable to me. That's fine. But it shouldn't be advertised as like, this is a gamer for, or this is a game for women, or this is a game for men. Like, and that's weird. Like, if the developers were promoting their game like that, that would be weird, where it's like, this is a game for guys. Like, okay, like, it's a weird angle, you know, but unnecessary as well. It's just not necessary. This type of shit is not necessary across the board. And Figuratively Literal re-ups their membership as well. Thank you so much for that, buddy. Yeah, I got a couple of membership re-ups today. Love to see it. Really appreciate that support, guys. And Figuratively Literal, you just brought us up to 85 members. Good shit. Guys, we are 15 away from hitting 100. That's crazy. Thank you guys so much. Saying I read some other quotes. He just sounds weird. Yeah, let me look a little bit deeper here. See what else there might be. Says here Yang Kui. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. Co-founder of the team of Game Science and the main artist of Black Myth Wukong, once posted a blog in 2013. He said game developers should understand what their players want and should not intentionally use fashion to attract female players in order to satisfy male players who want to meet girls in gaming socials. They don't need female gamers as an advertising resource. So, in other words, the dude is just speaking common sense and it's being twisted by Western media to make it seem like it's just blatant sexism. I don't get it, man. The whole article is taking things out of context. These journalists must have never been to China, don't know Chinese language, and use machine translations, and didn't even try to understand Chinese internet slang. It's not complicating it all because 99% of people won't care at all. If the game is as good as it looks, then be prepared for major success. Yeah, this is where like the nonsense. I'm getting tired of it, man. It's getting so fucking exhausting where it's like, can we just not we. Can Western games media, Western games journalism, California, can you just stop? Can you just please fucking stop? Like, can we just learn to enjoy things again? And stop making everything a fucking political, social fucking issue like all the time. It's like they'll try to find anything, man. It's so annoying. You're saying IGN hired a translator that they never paid. That they never paid. So it's not even a translation issue. Wait, how did they not pay this person? Steven, you're saying you moved from there, you'll never go back? I mean, I'm not trying to like, I'm not trying to turn it into that, but it's just, I read 2 fucking reviews today where at the end of each, and it's weird because it was at the end of each review too. Like, if it's that important to you guys, don't you think you should put that, like, why are you cramming it in there at the end? It just feels totally unnecessary. You narrowed that down a bit directly to California. No, I know. It's just because I know that that's where Sony's headquarters is now. PlayStation's headquarters. A lot of PlayStation studios there. We just need rational, reasonable, mature balance. We need adults, not people who are trying to like, constantly find a fucking problem with every little thing that people are saying. People getting offended over every little thing that somebody says. Like, grow the fuck up, Grow up. Live in the real world, please. The real world doesn't translate to we can't be better to one another. That's not what that means. It just means we need to just be fucking adults about things. Sometimes you got to learn to just laugh a little bit. Sometimes you got to, but you also got to know when not to cross a line by being a complete fucking fool. And it just feels like there's too many people that they don't know how to do either. I don't know how to not get offended by everything. I don't know how to not be an asshole constantly. It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't. Be better, people. Come on. If we do it together, we can do it. We can do it. I know we can. We can overcome this. You're saying I don't know how much the translator was supposed to be paid, but she called out the journalist who wrote several articles that she had helped with the translation. Oh, wow. That's even worse. Yeah. See, this is what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. Like, something just something just sounds weird. Saying you can't reason with those people. Yeah, that's the fear, right? That's the fear with this shit. It's like there is no reasoning. Well, something tells me when these companies start to wake up, and these companies, they are starting to wake up, and they start to realize we're losing money. This is hurting our bottom line. We're losing customers. We're losing sales. Once they start to see that in their earnings reports every quarter, something tells me that when these groups of people who are so hell-bent on pushing this shit and funneling everything down just one specific path, the only path that they can see, once they start losing their jobs and they start getting replaced, maybe then they'll get the wake-up call. One can only hope. Saying Sony doesn't have this problem, though. They're teetering on the edge a little bit, I would say, with some stuff, especially something like Concord recently. But holy shit, yo, guys, not to just... I guess it's not necessarily deviating too far, but have you guys been seeing the comment sections for the recent Concord trailers? Like, I legitimately almost feel a little bit sorry for the devs at Firewalk, at least some of them, where it's like, my God, dude. My God. I don't think I've seen... I don't know. I've seen some stuff on occasion that's just as bad, but it's crazy, dude. Like, it's crazy to see how insane... I'll just put it this way. I'm shocked Sony leaves their comments open. It's that bad. Like, it's that bad. I am shocked Sony doesn't actually, disable comments for Concord videos, because it is... People are savage, man. It's bad. Rudy, you're saying you're in there fighting haters? I'm not surprised, Rudy, to hear that from you. Remember MBG, some of those devs wanted to speak out but couldn't. I think you're talking about Firewalk. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I should acknowledge. Are we playing Crackdown 3? So I have to acknowledge that. I do apologize. I don't think that's going to... Well, that's definitely not going to happen today, but in case you can't tell, I basically didn't stream for 3 or 4 days. I had a couple things come up, just some family, personal related stuff that definitely interfered with my schedule, and I had set this goal of we're going to hit 500 members and stream Crackdown 3. And it just, I'm not going to come on here and be like, guys, we got to get 400 members today. Is my son okay? Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, it has nothing to do with my son, just other family matters. Shit comes up sometimes. Can't do anything about it. Thank you, Hey Tarnished. Saying, hello, MVG, I love you. The best YouTube streamer ever. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Steven says, family first. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Did I force my son to play Crackdown 3? How'd you know? I would never do such a thing. No, you know what? Hold on. So listen, talking about my son in video games, he's been playing Plants vs. Zombies a lot lately. His favorite game, he has two favorite games. They're both Plants vs. Zombies, Garden Warfare 2, and Plants vs. Zombies, Battle for Neighborville. Now, I played both of these games, and I loved them. I played Garden Warfare 1 as well. I love these games. Battle for Neighborville. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with these games. Battle for Neighborville, the last PvZ shooter game. It's actually, ironically enough, it's a hero shooter. Wasn't received too well, and it didn't do too well. If anybody's familiar with these games, everybody knows Plants vs. Zombies, Garden Warfare 2 is the GOAT. It's the last really great Garden Warfare game they made. But EA abandoned it, dude. EA has abandoned the Garden Warfare series, and they seemingly are not looking to make any more. However, I came across this video the other day that a YouTuber made, I guess, who covers Plants vs. Zombies and stuff. And apparently an EA community manager There was this big sale on Steam recently for Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2. And apparently the sale was so good, it like skyrocketed the player count, where there was like over like 10,000 people playing. And apparently it skyrocketed so much compared to where it was previously that it caught the attention of EA, where they were like, oh, hold on now. Is there interest in this game? And so this community manager for EA basically talked to the community and said, what we need right now is for everybody to like provide as much proof, do anything they can essentially to, so that community manager, and they can collect it all and take it to the higher ups at EA and show them like there's a real market here. There's a real appetite for Garden Warfare 3, to make a Garden Warfare 3. And I'm like, dude, I'm about to get in on this because I want that shit. Yeah, make Bad Company 3 as well. But I don't know, man. In the name of little MBG, we need to we need to let EA know you got to make Garden Warfare 3 a thing. At least his favorite isn't Fortnite. Job well done. Yeah, I'm surprised how much he's gravitated towards this game. He's really been playing it a lot. And he's been getting better too. I notice he's definitely improving, and oh man, it does make me sad because I love Plants vs. Zombies in general. I don't play PvZ2 because it just became too much like pay to win in a way. And I love the original Plants vs. Zombies, one of my favorite games of all time. Love the Garden Warfare games, dude. And I did enjoy Battle for Neighborville somewhat, but we need a proper Garden Warfare 3. EA, come on, man. You can't do this to me. Make it happen. I just thought that was kind of random. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have a backup plan, the dude. Steven, you're saying at 6, my son was playing Call of Duty. Dude, believe it or not, yeah, my son, he's like 3.5, and he did see some Call of Duty gameplay, and he seemed interested in it. Like he had just a natural inclination, like he wanted to maybe play Call of Duty, and I'm like, well, we'll see. Rich Rod says I can't be gangsta anymore. No, Rich Rod, you get like I love the energy. Keep the energy. Just tone down the violence and the names that you're using to describe people. I'm not like, because I feel like me having to read that stuff, those people are going to start to think I'm calling them that, and that's just going to cause internet drama. Rich Rod, spare me the internet drama, man. I love the energy. You couldn't play Call of Duty until you were 8. Devil Shooter, saying the earliest game I remember is Zelda or Spyro, or Ocarina of Time. I'm trying to remember. That's a tough one. The first game I can remember playing. I feel like I remember. Hold on. When what's interesting is like I know I played games. Some of like the clearest memories I have of playing games, and I guess this is maybe the different. We're talking about like playing a game that has like a profound impact on you, like where you can kind of like remember like the specific feeling and like, okay, I want to play video games. MBG, they hate you regardless. Oh, I know, but it's just for the sake of. I don't want people to. Like, people can think what they want, but I don't want to like put anything out there that's like somebody could take it out of context and be like, see, he said this. It's like, bro, he was reading a chat, I don't know. I do remember playing games on like the SNES when I was really, really young, like 3 or 4. But I remember just like a Star Wars game, that there were like quite a few different games, but I don't know. I guess it was my age. It didn't register with me, you know? Yeah, Mario, Super Mario Bros. And stuff, but I guess I would interact with the NES or the SNES, but it didn't really do much for me. It wasn't until around 1997, 98, and 99. Those were the years like when like the, you know, I was exposed to the Nintendo 64, the PS1. Like one of the things I remember is my cousin coming over with his Nintendo 64, and he brought with him, he did bring Zelda Ocarina of Time with him, but he also brought Smash Bros. Right? And I for some reason, I don't know, I had zero interest in Zelda. He was showing me it and he was really into it, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of cool, but I don't really care. Can we play Smash Bros? And I was really into Smash Bros. And I remember when he left that day, he accidentally forgot his Nintendo 64, and my aunt was like, "Oh, you know, you could just keep it. We'll grab it the next time we're over." And I was like, "Hell yeah, bro!" So I like obsessively played Smash Bros. And it's interesting to think that like that was one of my first really distinct gaming memories where, you know, I didn't own a console at that time, but I felt like I did for like a week, you know, because it was left there. And that was the game I was exposed to, is Smash Bros. And I did have Zelda, but I was like, I don't know, maybe I just didn't quite understand how to play it. I guess maybe Smash Bros was a little bit simpler, you know, it's just kind of easier to get into. But you know, I remember playing Mario Kart, but really it was the PS1 and games like Crash, you know. I remember playing like Medal of Honor, the very first Medal of Honor. I sucked at it. It was terrible. I was really bad at video games when I was a kid. It's like really terrible. Don't know why. But yeah, a little bit of random story time here. But let's get back onto the topic here. So let me ask you guys, how are you feeling? So we covered about 3 very in-depth reviews of Black Myth Wukong. And I got to ask you guys, how are we feeling? 54 reviews as of right now, 54 total reviews. Every single review is on PC, sitting at an 82 on Metacritic. How are we feeling? I mean, I'm still feeling pretty good. I'm a little bit worried still about the lack of PS5 reviews. I'm going to be paying very close attention over the next couple days to see if we get some PS5 reviews. Oh yeah, the early Pokemon games. Yeah, those two. Grady says he wants to see some PS5 reviews. I do too, because it's interesting. 2 out of the 3 reviews we read cited some problems with performance on PC. So it sounds like the optimization might not be great on PC. Some people are going to struggle. So it's a coin flip, I would say right now. It's definitely a coin flip where the PS5 version is either going to be more optimized, better optimized, or it's going to be even worse. I'm hoping it's better, obviously, because that's where I want to play it. You thought it would be higher, the mid-90s? What made you think that, Rudy? Just out of curiosity. Will, you think it's going to run good on PS5? It's going to run terribly on the Series S. It's actually not releasing on Xbox. Terrence, yeah. This game is not releasing on Xbox. Not sure who else didn't know that, but you might buy it twice for the PC and PS5. Jack K says 82 is a good score, especially coming from smaller studios, first time making a single player AAA game. Rudy, you're saying didn't hear the question, MBG. My question, Rudy, was what made you think that this game was going to be in like maybe the mid 90s or something like that? Black Myth Wukong. I'm just wondering because like I don't know, man. What's weird to me is the cons that I'm seeing. I'm not seeing any cons that seem, I don't know. This is why I'm always skeptical about reviews anymore, man. It's hard not to be skeptical because I just feel like you never really know. We're talking about individual opinions. You never really know what a reviewer is going to dock points for. And some of the things that I've read today from a 6 out of 10 review, even from PC Gamer randomly throwing in this IGN article that was basically debunked, it's like, it's hard for me. If I see an 82, sometimes I start to think like, is it more along the lines of an 88, of an 86? And you always got to be very careful. Here's the most important thing. Putting the number aside, because I want to remind people like Ghost of Tsushima is like an 83 on Metacritic. Ghost of Tsushima was a game that definitely taught me like, wow, you really can't focus too much on the number. Rudy, you're saying just the hype surrounding it? Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, to me, the most important thing when looking at reviews for a game like Black Myth Wukong, it feels like I really just need the answer to one question. And that is it a good, fun, competent video game? Or is there some kind of major glaring flaw that the developers hid? I feel like that is the only question that needs to be answered for me personally when it comes to Black Myth Wukong. And aside from seeing how it's going to perform on PS5, the answer to that question is yes, it is a competent, well-playing, fun game that you'll probably thoroughly enjoy. I feel like that, and the 82 on Metacritic is not well, I guess that's partially communicating it to me, but it's also just the fact that when I look specifically, when I start to try to find what are the flaws that people are pointing out of this game, what's lacking, the things that they're pointing out to me sound so minimal where it's like, okay, like I'm not, like what I'm hearing is not dissuading me at all. No. Capono, I'm not saying 80 or above. An 80 or above is a good score. I agree. I'm just saying sometimes you just have to accept that everybody's going to have, in some cases, well, everybody is going to have a different opinion, but in some cases, your own individual opinion can be very different from what maybe the majority are saying. Where, for example, like bringing up Ghost of Tsushima, like to me, Ghost of Tsushima is like a 9.5 out of 10. And in some cases, a 10 out of 10. Not an 8 out of 10, not an 8.3 out of 10. Like it's a top tier, like one of my favorite games, one of the best games I've ever played. And I come across people that are like, oh no, I really think it's like more like a 7.5 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. It's like, well, that's not bad. Yeah, like that's still very good, but it just makes me think like, it makes me wonder, like, if I'm looking at Black Myth Wukong and it's sitting at an 83 on Metacritic or an 82 on Metacritic, it makes me wonder, could this be a Ghost of Tsushima situation where the reviews are saying, yeah, it's like an 82. It's like an 8 out of 10. And then I play it and we're like, dude, this is like a 10 out of 10. I don't know. Gaming Bolt gave it a 10 out of 10. Whoever reviewed it for Gaming Bolt thought it was a masterpiece. So it's like, all right, well, I'm still feeling pretty good about it. I think it would have been a different situation if we were sitting here and it was sitting at like a 6 or a 5 out of 10. You know, like a 50, 55 on Metacritic or a 65 on Metacritic. I think we would have had to dive a lot deeper into like, okay, what's the fatal flaw here? Something's very wrong. And the biggest flaw from what I can tell seems to be the performance, which is a concerning flaw. But that's for PC. So the specific flaw that's being pointed out here by reviewers, I don't even know if it's going to be applicable to the PS5 version. It might be, it might not be. So there's still a big question mark for now. If going off of reviews, it's best to have a couple that you tend to agree with, or go to the experts who only play that type of game. Yeah, that can be helpful too. Sometimes this is what I like to do, though. I like to read the lowest, the highest, and one that's kind of in between, and try to see like how different they sound from one another. And I think that gives me because it's almost like getting the opinion of somebody who didn't really like it, somebody who loved it, and somebody who thought it was either okay or just good, and just trying to like pick out some of the specific things that they seem to be focused on. Like, for example, reading that 6 out of 10 review, I get it. Like, to me, it seems like that reviewer basically took off 2 points off the top because they don't like the fact it's linear. They didn't like the fact that you can't traverse different, you can't traverse the environments in different ways, and it's not more open. That seemed to be a huge sticking point for them and a major negative. To me, that's what's funny about that is that's a positive. Like, I want that. I want something that's more focused and less open because I'm tired of playing so many open world games. So, one man's trash is another man's treasure. You know how it goes. Just going to check to see if I... This is interesting. IGN, yeah, I forgot to check IGN's. IGN gave it an 8 out of 10. So hold on. IGN is the gaming outlet that wrote the damning article, the damning report, claiming that the studio was sexist, but they gave the game an 8 out of 10. Let me see if I can find their review. Full review from IGN. Not written by the same person who did the sexism report. Black Myth Wukong review, 8 out of 10. A great action game with fantastic combat, exciting bosses, and a few too many bugs. Excellent blend of different combat options. I mean, it's mostly positive. One of the most gorgeous games I've ever played. I would love to be able to recommend it without the technical caveats. Holy shit, there's not a single dude. Okay, this is bizarre. In IGN's own review, they don't even mention their own report of sexism. Meanwhile, other separate reviews did. Somebody make it make sense. As far as I can tell, I'm not seeing anything on this review. The verdict. It says, as Game Science's debut action game, Black Myth Wukong is mostly a great success despite some major technical black marks and localization issues. That's strange because another review praised its localization. I don't understand. All right, now there's like some really weird conflicting stuff coming up now where I'm starting to like wonder like who the hell do I believe? Issues that are likely to cause some frustrations at launch. Combat is fantastic thanks to the great balance of careful resource management and lightning fast Twitch reaction gameplay that tested my skills as much as Elden Ring ever has. Oh, okay, interesting. Despite being a more traditional action game than From Software style. Not only that, but there are a ton of exciting boss battles, a great variety of enemies, and the world they inhabit is an absolute treat for the eyes and ears. Its story has its moments, but relies a bit too much on having prior knowledge of the events of Journey to the West, and it really could have used a map to make its rewarding exploration measure up to the strength of its combat. That said, its strengths more than carry it through. Black Myth Wukong is a great action game that could be even greater if game science can squash the bugs. All right, well, this dude, the absolute state of gaming journalism, bro. Yeah, exactly. Gaming journalism in a nutshell. The outlet that drops the bombshell report on the studio talking about sexism. Flash forward a year later, the game comes out, the reviews are out. They say nothing about it. They give it an 8 out of 10. Great game, has some bugs, but highly recommend. Meanwhile, other outlets reviewing it, game is pretty great, highly recommend, but there was this one IGN report. So fucking weird, dude. It's so weird. Could they patch in a map? Yeah, that's the thing I am most eager to find out for myself is a lack of a map in a way sounds kind of nightmarish to me, but it really depends on. So listen, everything we've heard so far, it says Black Myth Wukong is an extremely linear game for the first chapter. And then when we get to chapter 2, it begins to open up. And then once you progress from chapter 2, it begins to get linear again. This just makes me wonder, how open is that middle section? I guess that's what it would be, the middle section of the game. Are we talking like you go from being straight up on rails to now you can just go a little bit left, a little bit right, and explore a couple random paths? Or are we talking like Last of Us 2 level where it's linear, basically on rails mostly, and then you just have this massive random open section? Like that, I always thought that was the weirdest thing. I'm telling you, in The Last of Us Part 2, I think they tried to make that game open world at first. If you play the Seattle section, like it was clear that like they thought about going full open world, but then they were like, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. So there's just this kind of awkward point of the game where it's like, yeah, God of War is kind of like that, but it's more consistent in that God of War has multiple open sections that can make it feel open world, and the linear sections are kind of tethered in between. So to me, this sounds more similar to something like, you think it sounds like Sekiro? Yeah, I'm curious to find that out for myself, because that does make me a little bit nervous. The only thing that I feel nervous about, other than finding out what the PS5 performance is going to be like, the only other thing that makes me nervous is the idea that we're going to have a big open section of, portion of this game and no map. The idea of that stresses me out a little bit. Capone, are you saying MBG likes when games hold his hand? Yeah, sometimes, honestly, yeah. I won't lie. I'll be the first to admit, like, I do appreciate a game where I do love linear progression. I can't deny that. It's just the way my brain works, you know? I can appreciate exploration at times. I can appreciate, it really depends on what frame of mind I'm in. Like, if I'm in the right frame of mind, I can definitely go into a game blind completely and be like, okay, I'll figure it out myself. But I have to be in the right frame of mind. More often than not, I'm in a frame of mind where open world games and large open areas intimidate me because they overwhelm me. And I do find it incredibly helpful when it's like, we're going to kind of let you know where to go if that's all you're interested in. If you're not so interested in exploring every nook and cranny and figuring everything out for yourself, here's something that can help guide you to basically create that linear feeling in an open space. I do appreciate that. But what did I give Death Stranding? I mean, I love Death Stranding. Death Stranding is one of those games where when I first played it, it didn't immediately click. When I first played Death Stranding, I was like, okay, this is different. And I'm really feeling the vibe of the game, but the gameplay loop took a while for me to actually like. it was one of those things where when I was playing Death Stranding, I don't know that I liked the gameplay loop at first because I think I was just bad at it. I'm like, this feels kind of difficult, and I'm not really sure. Like, it's stressing me out. It's stressing me out. And, you know, the fact the game was so open also stressed me out a little bit too, where it was kind of like, you can figure it out. You got to transport this shit, figure it out. And it was, you know, it was just one of those things where over time I just learned. I'm like, oh, I felt like I was kind of thrown into it, and I figured it out. So, you know, 20 hours later, 30 hours later, 40, I put it like over 100 hours into Death Stranding. I was like a pro, you know, I'm delivering packages like crazy. I'm zipping across this map, you know, terrain can't stop me. And the gameplay loop did get very addicting. Yeah, it did get very addicting. Did I like Detroit Become Human? You know what's interesting about Detroit Become Human is I started playing and I never finished it. From what I played of it, though, it was very good. I'm very sad for a couple of reasons. I'm sad that I never finished it. I do have to get around to that because I really liked what I played. I don't even remember why I stopped playing it. See, this is what I mean. It just happens sometimes, man. I start playing games and then I just walk away for some reason. Not because I'm not liking it, because I just walk away. Did it give me more of a sense of achievement, though? Yeah, I do like those types of experiences as well. I feel like that's like the most extreme. Well, I don't know. In Detroit Become Human, what felt overwhelming about that game is just never knowing what choice I should make. But dude, Quantic Dream, I just saw a report that came out today. Let me see if I can bring it up. Quantic Dream, they're working on Star Wars Eclipse. The lead writer on Star Wars Eclipse has left to start his own studio. Adam Williams, who joined Quantic Dream in 2015, posted a message on his LinkedIn page announcing that he left the studio and has founded his own. After almost 10 years at Quantic Dream, I am leaving to found a new studio together with a group of very talented designers and developers. We can't say too much. We've been working on something very innovative, very special, and for now, very secret. More on that soon. I've already been in touch with many of you guys at Quantic Dream and Lucasfilm to thank you for everything on Detroit and Eclipse. It's been a great adventure. Big thank you to the team for taking this leap with us, and to the investors for being the ideal partners on the next adventure. More on that soon. Williams was the lead writer on Detroit Become Human and took on the lead role for Star Wars Eclipse in December of 2021. Quantic Dream first announced Star Wars Eclipse during the Game Awards in December 2021, where it was said to be in early development. Star Wars Eclipse is the first video game to be set in an uncharted region of the Outer Rim during the High Republic era, known as the Golden Age of the Jedi. This is what the company said at the time. The game will build upon Quantic Dream's expertise in delivering deeply branching narratives and will go beyond their already established acclaim. Players' choices will be at the heart of the experience, as every decision can have a dramatic impact on the course of the story. So I think a lot of people forgot that Quantic Dream announced a while ago in 2021 that they're working on a Star Wars game. And we haven't seen or heard anything about it in literal years. And now they just lost their lead writer. So I don't know if that means the writing section is done. It could be good or bad. It could mean that the writing is done and now he's moving on. Or it could mean the opposite and that the game is in some kind of development hell. Bro. Did you not get enough today? The studio acquisitions are suffocating the innovation and imagination of the developers. Am I getting Star Wars Outlaws? Right now I don't plan to. I have other games I'm planning on playing. I fully expect I'll still be playing Black Myth Wukong when that game drops. I'm just not so in the Star Wars anymore either. Boss is making his power known. Yeah, he is. He always makes his power known. Bro. Speaking of Star Wars, Just throwing out some random news stuff here at the end. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order possibly coming to Switch 2 at or near launch. A Reset Era user posted this today. I never signed any pieces of paper or NDAs. All I heard was that Switch 2 was releasing in 2025, back in early 2023, as I had an opportunity to port a game to it for my next project. I just come off of said game's sequel, so that should tell you what kind of liberty is being readied for this thing, or library is being readied for this thing. Although, to be fair, it was a big franchise and a big name for casuals / non-gamers to get excited about. I'm thinking Nintendo want to give a big buffer of time for third parties / AAA ports to stack up for the release date. The timeline, this person says the timeline fits perfectly for Fallen Order as a sequel. Survivor released in 2023. The supposed date, this person started working on the previous entry for this big name franchise, aka Star Wars. See, this is what really interests me. Once the Switch 2 becomes more real, and like it's okay, they're getting ready to announce it. I'm super interested to see what the Switch 2 does, because I really want to know what type of third-party support Switch 2 is going to get. Really interested to see what kind of third-party support Switch 2 gets, because I think that makes all the difference in how much the Switch is going to compete with PlayStation or not. I think the Switch 2 is going to be fine, by the way. I want to make that clear. Switch 2 could have minimal third-party support. Excuse me, I think it's still going to be fine. But the more third-party support that the Switch 2 gets, the more difficult it might make things for Sony. Yeah, we literally just covered that. Sorry, XXX 2600. The PSN store exclusive weekend sale just started, but I haven't had a chance to check what game's in it yet. But it may be worth a look. Well, I think to kind of I see we're approaching the 3.5 hour mark. So here's what we'll do. Last call for any more fan funding, membership gifts, becoming a channel member, re-upping your membership, dropping a super chat, dropping a direct donation. Now is the time to do it if you planned on doing it anymore before the stream comes to an end. I'll give it a couple more minutes before we close it out, because I see we're approaching the 3.5 hour mark, and I pretty much said everything I have to say about Black Myth Wukong and the reviews. It's a little bit all over the place today, but generally speaking, I think we got most of the information we needed. Rudy, I think Sony does have a handheld coming. Ghetto God, you're saying you did pre-order Black Myth? You're excited for it? I guess Boss just really needs to assert his dominance right now on my stream. Are we playing Crackdown 3? We are not playing Crackdown 3 today, no. We will be doing, so yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do the member goal thing for specific, because I don't know. It feels a little bit shaky. But what we will be doing is starting this upcoming week, I'm still going to be doing gameplay streams for members. So honestly, the next gameplay stream I'm likely going to do is Black Myth Wukong. Wait, when does that come out? So it drops Tuesday. Well, Tuesday I'm going to be streaming Gamescom, but yeah, we were nowhere near, at least, again, I didn't stream for 3 or 4 days, but we were nowhere near hitting the goal to Crackdown 3. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I don't think I'm going to do that shit, because I didn't want to play Crackdown 3. Again, I would have done it if we hit that goal, but I'm you know what? I think I just want to focus on playing games that I think people will, I don't know. I was going to say that I think people will enjoy seeing me play, but at the same time, I know people enjoy seeing, I know you guys would enjoy seeing me play Crackdown 3 and Suffering, but does a member goal make you feel uncomfortable? I mean, here's the only thing that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's when I feel like I'm over promising or overextending my reach, where like something just feels out of balance, where it's like, wait, why would I put that as a Crackdown 3? Like, I'm not going to play. Boss, what are you doing, bro? Showing people your dander? Don't do it. Don't do it. I said don't do it, man. I said don't put that on screen. This cat, bro. I'm sorry you guys had to see that. I saw that, Daniel. I did see that. All right. No. Hey. You are being bad. Hold on. I gotta teach boss a lesson here. Come on. Stop fighting me. Stop fighting me. Hey, don't you dare bite me. You see him get pissed off like he was trying to bite me? He's like, bite your wrist. He's irritable these days, man. Let me tell you, boss is very irritable these days. Don't do it. Don't do it. I said don't. Oh my God. Hold on. It's all falling apart, guys. Whole thing's falling apart. MBG, I was looking forward to the Crackdown 3 because I know nothing about the game. Well, here's the thing. I'm not saying we'll never do a Crackdown 3 stream. I want to make that clear. It's not totally, completely off the table. It's just, that was a bad week to try to do something like that. I didn't realize, I think I started it on Sunday. I went into Sunday being like, all right, we're going to set this goal. We're going to go for the stream. I did not realize that there was going to be a bunch of shit coming up this week that was going to make it really difficult for me to stream, thus limiting the opportunity for you guys to even hit that goal. But for now, here's the truth. We're starting with Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth Wukong opens the floodgates. From that moment forward, it's just, there's going to be more and more and more games releasing all throughout the remainder of this year that I'm going to be behind. You know, like I'm not going to be able to play all of them. So it's like, I don't know that I want to waste time, you know, on trying to play these, like, in the future when there's another lull period. If I'd done it maybe a couple weeks ago, probably would have been a better time. But and another thing, again, you know how it is, all right? You know how sometimes I make changes. If I do like a member goal for like a specific game stream, I might just limit it to like 1 or 2 streams. You know what I mean? Like, oh, if we hit this goal today, I'll play this game after this stream or over the next 2 days. I don't know if I want to like extend it for an entire week because I feel like it puts a lot of pressure, you know? Puts a lot of pressure, I think, throughout the entire week. But we'll see. We'll just take it day by day, guys. Do I think Xbox will send me do I think they'll send me a review copy of the PS6 version of Crackdown 4? I can only hope so, bro. I'm dying to know what this next Xbox game is. Guys, make sure you tune into Sunday's stream because we're going to talk all about more Xbox games coming to PlayStation. I'm wondering if Microsoft will reach out to me for future Xbox games because they reached out to me for Grounded, you know? And that was interesting. Flight Sim, yeah. We'll talk about it. I think Flight's, yeah. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for today's stream. I'm going to bring it to a close. Before I go, though, I want to just give a massive shout out to all of you guys. I know not everybody's here. Some of you guys left earlier, but just a shout out to this community. We are ending the day at 85 members, which is nuts. That's a huge, huge number. I cannot thank you guys enough for showing such incredible support. But I also want to make sure to give a big shout out to everybody who either re-upped their membership, dropped a direct donation, or dropped a super chat because it all helps tremendously. This channel, this content, this community, it's all fan funded. Stop chewing my wires. Boss is trying to end the stream permanently. You better knock it off, dude. Don't you give me that look. Who do you think you are, bro? I swear, man, this cat, he thinks he's the alpha right now, bro. Anyway, thank you guys so much for all the support. I also want to make sure to give a special shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for the streams. I know a lot of people really appreciate those timestamps, and I know Devil Shooter really cares about the community. If you see him in the comments, show him some thanks, give him some love. And yeah, the only other request I have is as you're heading out, please hit that like button to help the stream. And the next stream will be on Sunday. Again, if you're a channel member, as long as nothing goes wrong behind the scenes, the next episode of Dual Sensibility Podcast will be out for all members sometime tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, that does it, guys. So enjoy the rest of your day. I will catch you guys this Sunday. So until then, take care, everyone.